Guys, we're gonna go live on video and sound. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the February 2nd, 2020 special board meeting of the Roswell Independent School District. I now call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please, Ms. Whitcamp?
Hope Morales.
Yes.
Hilda Sanchez.
Yes.
Mona Kirk.
Yes.
James Edwards.
Yes.
Milburn Dolan.
Yes.
Thank you, and we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
President Morales, board members, there are no modifications to the agenda.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion made by Mr. Dolan and a second made by Ms. Sanchez. May I get a roll call, please?
Hope Morales.
Yes.
Hilda Sanchez.
May I have a motion to approve?
Sorry. Yes.
Mona Kirk.
Yes.
James Edwards.
Yes.
Milburn Dolan.
Yes.
The ayes have it and the motion carried. We will now have inquiries and general comments. Ms. Whitcamp, has anyone requested to speak?
Yes, ma'am, we have two.
Oh.
Okay. We'll wait to get them on the phone and then I will read the ground rules.
Only two?
Okay. I'll call the second one. The first one did not answer. Ms. Jordan, it's Mike Gottlieb. I'm going to put you on speaker. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Morales.
Okay, good evening. Before you speak, I'm going to be reading the public forum ground rules. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss any specific student who is not your own. Please do not discuss confidential personnel matters, including those of disciplinary nature regarding any RISD employee. This should be discussed with the superintendent or the employee supervisor. Please self-monitor the 2-minute time limit for this special meeting. You may be given a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. If needed to accommodate a larger number of speakers and maintain a reasonable meeting schedule, the time limit for all speakers may be shortened. No sharing of time is permitted. Public commentary and dialogue is only guaranteed during the public forum, not throughout the meeting. Please search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it is on the agenda or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. Please be advised that the board may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law, the board cannot take action on items that are not on the agenda. For the safety of yourself and others, signs and placards are not permitted in the boardroom. However, you are invited to express your concerns during public forum or submit your concerns to the board in writing. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jordan.
All right, thank you. I'm going to be speaking as fast as I can to get through with this, so I apologize if it's hard to hear sometimes. So that said, good evening, board members and superintendent. Thank you for hearing my concerns. First of all, I want to ask that the board delay their decision to open up the hybrid model. 2 minutes is nowhere near enough time to present and discuss concerns. As a public institution, it would be reasonable to provide an opportunity for the public and discuss and share concerns. Have there been any studies of successful hybrid models? Where are the research-based, peer-reviewed studies? Since when do schools and districts take action on it sounds like a good idea? In my own classroom, from lessons to classroom setup to behavior management, even down anchor charts and which color markers to use, These are expected to be used based on solid research. Again, what evidence is there that hybrid supports successful learning? If there is none, why are we doing it? That said, I will continue. My name is Lynette Jordan. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Valley View, teaching for 5 years, totaling of 6 years of teaching. I have taught second, fifth, fourth, departmentalization, gifted, and now fourth online teaching for nearly a full year. Teaching is my life, it's my blood, it's in my family, my mom, my sisters, my brothers-in-law, my great-grandmother, all teachers. Helping students learn is my passion, my purpose. I am reminding you that you hired an educational expert, like every single other teacher in this district. In spite of hundreds of educational experts in this district, there has been no invitation to discuss or review the implications of educating or trying to educate our children in this hybrid model. So as an expert who is actively and successfully teaching fourth graders grade level content 4 days a week in reading, science, and social studies, I can tell you that this current virtual model works. They are also getting PE, art, and library. We work hard and have fun, just like in-person school. Has this been challenging? Of course. Difficult? Yes, for everyone. But it's finally getting easier. Students know their routines, they know their expectations, they know what to do, and to push even further. I know what to do. I can create online lessons that work well. I've worked through these challenges like a breeze. Those aha moments that were magical in the classroom are coming faster and faster now. Students are getting it. They are becoming stronger, more capable individuals because of it.
All right, Ms. Jordan, your time's up. I appreciate it very much. We thank you very much for all your comments.
Thank you, Ms.
All right,
Jordan.
thank you.
Thank you. Our other speaker, I've called twice, has not called back. I left her my number.
Okay, thank you.
Her message was, I can't call you back at this time.
Okay, so before we begin, I really want to acknowledge the board, and I've done so in the past. I think that we work really well together. We all offer you our unique experiences. We have great questions and great dialogue. This is going to be a very important topic that we discuss tonight, and I'm confident that we'll continue to treat each other with great respect. We'll have great questions, hopefully a great dialogue, and I have no doubt that our conversations will be centered around our students. So with that being said, our first action item, we have our action items next on the agenda. So first we have approval of our first item, which is discussion and vote regarding possible hybrid instructional model for students, physical attendance, review of associated health safety requirements. After the presentation, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll have a discussion before we discuss possible motions. Mr. Gottlieb, you can begin with your presentation.
Madam President, thank you, board members. We would like to, maybe put it on mute.
No, it's that.
Okay. We would like to start off with a presentation so you can see what's in place, what's required by the PED, DOH, and the governor's office. So you can see all the different aspects that the school district will have to look at as we move forward. Has everything been done to this date? Absolutely not, because we have to see how the board is going to vote. There's a lot of things we have planned for. There's a lot of things that we've been planning since August. As you remember, we had to submit 2 different plans to the PED. We updated a plan in June, we did another one in August, and an update in September. So that's actually a 3rd plan. So we have asked people to involve their staff when they meet with their staff, tell them that information. I've sent you everything I possibly could ahead of time that we have received from the PED, the governor's office, and DOH. So before we get started with our presentation, I do have Mr. Cole here. He's going to read you something from Mr. Maxey.
From who?
Mr. Maxey.
Yes, good evening, President Morales, Superintendent Gottlieb, members of the board. So just real briefly, everything is happening at kind of light speed right now. Everybody's trying to move together. I want to first thank our REA union group, Mr. Greg Maxey, the regional representative, Ms. Denise Dawson, our local president, for, number one, their time, but also their support of our staff and certainly of our kids in our community. So we did meet today with Mr. Maxey and Ms. Dawson Maria Trujillo, Jennifer Cole, and I all met and worked through some issues pretty quickly together, but I think the beauty of it is we're all looking out for our students and staff, and just want to reiterate a couple of things that we did talk about and that we did prioritize today. I know the rumor mill is going full speed, and so we want to make sure that our communications are clear and that we're maybe easing the minds of some of our folks. So again, negotiated commitment between RISD and REA in the introduction of the hybrid model under the governor's latest order. So a continuation of the memorandum of understanding of benefits for COVID leave for quarantined and positive employees. We're still doing that. We have that MOU in place with REA. We also have it in place with CWA. ADA accommodations, American Disabilities Act accommodations for staff with approved medical documentation as outlined by the CDC. Again, Mr. Heal's office has been working very hard with our general legal counsel, and I know our physicians and practitioners here in Roswell are trying to do the right things too, so kudos to them. Child supervision services available on Thursday and Friday for children of employees at no cost. So child care services Thursdays and Fridays for RISD staff. That's going to continue. We've got that commitment. REA is on board with us in supporting that as well. Superintendent and the rest of us are going to make that happen. I guess I should say on the front end, and I think I said this a few months back when we were first thinking or contemplating about opening up to a hybrid model. Nothing's going to be perfect. It's going to be a slog going through it, but I think the thing that we can all be proud of is we've done it together in spite of all the obstacles, and we're doing well, but it's not, none of it will be perfect. And so again, we're just trying to look ahead and look out for our employees and our community. Agreement to follow all COVID safe protocols and CDC, DOH, Department of Health requirements are in place since August of 2020, and those will continue. Pay increments for lunch and or playground duty. So we know there's going to be a lot of associated duties with this in managing the flow of people and the exposure or potential exposures. We also know that there's going to be a lot of classroom meals going on by necessity. And in some schools, maybe like Mesa Middle School where they're doing construction, definitely be doing meals. Now, it may vary a little bit from building to building, high school to elementary, but for the most part, we're going to see a lot of meals in the classroom. We know that's a burden on our teachers. We know that there's a requirement in statute for prep time. We've addressed those issues with the REA, and we appreciate their support on that. We're going to make an increment available, so that'll be the next shoe to drop at the next, I don't know if we can get it on the next board agenda or not. Okay. Yes, sir. So we will get that on the next board agenda. We'll put an increment on there, $900 per semester for the duty. Yes, sir. Yeah, one time for the 2021 school year. And then $30 per hour on work agreement for non-recurring duty assignments. We know that we're going to have to be flexible. REA recognizes that we're going to have to be flexible. We may have to shift some people around to accommodate and make sure we're all doing the right things for the right reasons. Ensure planning time for educational staff members. That's important, not just to REA, it's important to Mr. Gottlieb, it's important to Jennifer Cole, the instructional team, the instructional office team, and they're committed to that. A prioritization for people requesting vaccinations. As you know from working with Mr. Gottlieb, he's been working very diligently on that. I know he's been working with our nurses, Katie, and with Mr. Trujillo on that as well. So we're committed to that. Commitment to collaborate on the successful implementation of RISD's hybrid model. Again, we know it's not going to be perfect. We know we're going to have to work together. Communication is key. We just need to keep that flow going back and forth and build off of it. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
We had that quick negotiations today. Again, I want to thank the union for their guidance and for their help as we move forward on this issue. As Mr. Cole said, nothing's going to be perfect, and we have not been in school since March of last year. And we never have had these restrictions in the 32 years I've been in the school district. We've never had all the restrictions we have in place. So this is going to be a learning curve. I have 2 points for you tonight. I'll be handing you the PowerPoint, and then I have extra things for you to look at so that you can ask me questions. And I'll be honest with you, if I know the answer, I'll give it to you. If I don't, I'll get it to you. I have been trying to be as open and honest with the board and give you as much as, probably more than you want to read, including the latest research from Dr. Carson. I hope you had a chance to look at that on that issue from the pediatric board, and she's also on the state board with the governor. So I've tried to share all the information I possibly could. Again, not everything has gone out to the buildings. Why? Because the board hasn't had their chance to vote. You have lost a lot of your rights as board. We're trying to get that back. So this is one step of getting back to the board's rights as we move forward. So what we're going to start off with is a video, and then we'll start with my PowerPoint and handing out stuff, and then answer questions.
Will be greeted by a teacher, who they will ensure masks are on, properly in place, and social distance guidelines are being followed. Students will then make their way to the entrance of the building. For students who are riding the bus, they will also be greeted by a teacher, who will ensure COVID guidelines are being followed before entering the building.
Once students are dropped off, they will line up and we will have separate entrances for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
As staff enters a facility, they must first use hand sanitizer that exceeds the 60% alcohol level. Upon arrival, they have access to masks, gloves, and disinfectant. Staff must all complete a health survey, either on their phones or manually. If staff chooses to complete the health screening manually, they must also take their temperature using a digital thermometer that they have access to at the entrance. Upon entering the building, staff must abide by the 6-foot social distancing guideline.
At the Roswell High School cafeteria, we will use 2 different entrances, one on the north side and one on the south side. Also, stickers are placed 6 feet apart to guide students so that they maintain 6 feet of distancing throughout the cafeteria line as they get their food. And also, we have our desks at least 6 feet apart and facing the same direction to keep our students socially distanced.
All school administrators are aware of who the district's point of contact is to report a COVID-19 positive case, and we report to her directly.
Daily attendance is taken by the classroom teacher and is kept in a folder. It is readily available and easy to access if needed.
We have easy access to a notebook that has all staff members and their cell phone numbers. Also in this notebook will contain contractors' information, busing information, sped daycare and daycare lists, along with cleaning logs for our building.
Our school has a designated isolation area for ill students, which meets the guidelines for 6-foot social distancing.
We have access to rosters that tell us who is in the building and their destination for all staff, students, and visitors. In addition to logging in at the front door, we have documentation of everyone who enters and leaves our classroom.
Building plans are accessible and can be found in the lobby of every school.
We are mailing individual decision trees to all families in English and Spanish.
In case of any large portions of the building being evacuated or the entire building being evacuated at once, we'll be utilizing our recess yard to ensure that each class is separate from one another, that the students are 6 feet apart from each other, and we'll be utilizing the Viking Valet or our student pickup, or parents to pick up their students here, or buses on the north side of the building.
Right now, the mandate is MERC 13, and those MERC 13s are really good at capturing the smaller particulates. They're really high-end filters. They're going to be done quarterly, and that's going to account for the majority of the sites, with the exception of the 7 that are going to get the I-Wave. We have 7 sites throughout the district that physically cannot accommodate the mandate on the MERC 13 filters. And the reason why, some of those just don't have the capability, they don't have the real estate for us to put the MERC 13 filters in it. So the solution that we're doing in those 7 sites that we have in the district is we are installing I-Wave ionizers here. And what that does, we're still filtering the equipment with standard MERC 8 filters, but we're also incorporating the I-Wave R, and what that does, it's got 2 ionizers in there that inject the same amount of ions into the airstream, and it breaks down some particles such as mold, bacteria, viruses, dust, and so forth, and it makes them a little denser, so we're able to capture some of that stuff in the standard filter, and it also breaks down some of those particles, which it's a little bit better than just capturing. We're actually having a little more killing power with them. We have LEDs here. Let me turn it on so you can kind of see what we're doing. So green means it's operating. If we ever come out here and we see a red light, that means that the system has malfunctioned. And at that point, we need to replace it or figure out why it's not working. So that way, it ensures that we know that we're working properly and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
My name is Daryl Evans, and I am the custodial maintenance supervisor for RISD. In the Roswell schools, we have realized how important disinfecting and cleaning is at this point in time. We've been utilizing products such as Husky for several years, and it's well documented to kill germs and disinfect school facilities. We use this for everything from floors to ceilings and has been effective in classrooms, bathrooms, and everything in between.
We use a foaming Q&A to clean and disinfect. We also put that in a spray bottle and dilute it to clean our water fountains, so it knocks out scale, plus it cleans and disinfects. The other product we use is Husky. We use this in our mop waters, wiping down doorknobs, walls, all surfaces is what we use this stuff for. We can dilute it also, put it in a spray bottle so the teachers can have it to disinfect stuff in their rooms. The other stuff we use is the hand sanitizers, which are in all of the classrooms. This is the machine that we use to clean the bathrooms. It's called a Kivac. The high schools have up to 4 or 5. But every school has at least one of these. We'll take this wand and we'll put a mist of Q&A mixed with water on all surfaces, and then we'll go in there with this brush. We'll brush all of the floors, and then he'll come back, he'll rinse it, and then he'll vacuum everything up. The nice thing about this piece of equipment is even though we're killing all the germs, just like a bucket and bleach would do, we're also vacuuming them back up. So we're not doing any cross-contaminating anywhere. Once we use this machine in this bathroom, all the wastewater is put into a holding tank, and then we just get rid of it in one of the toilets or a mop sink or something, but there's no cross-contamination on anything as long as we use this machine the way we've been trained to use this. The nice thing about the Husky is we're not getting all the fumes and the stuff like we do on Clorox that bothers some people. This just has a real light, kind of a mint peppermint scent, and it doesn't bother people like some of the Clorox stuff does. This is our Unger mop system, and we use this to clean walls in classrooms and bathrooms. So you notice that there's a green pad, that's for halls, classrooms, and then the red pad is for nothing but bathrooms. That way we're not cross-contaminating. If we're using the mop in the hall, it's more for spot mopping. And we have at least one of these at every school, and you can see once it's done, it's just as dry as when you started, so we don't have any problem with people slipping and falling.
Knowing when your child is too sick to go to school has always been an area of concern for parents. Today, as we confront the COVID-19 pandemic, that issue takes on even more importance. Hi, I'm Katie McLean, the nursing supervisor with the Roswell Independent School District. The health and well-being of your child is our primary concern. In this video, we will address some of the questions you might have regarding when and how long you should keep your child home if they are ill, for their health as well as the health and safety of others.
We ingest, inhale, intake viruses constantly. They are everywhere on Earth. Even though we do our best to prevent contracting these viruses by doing things such as washing our hands and using hand sanitizers, sometimes diseases are still transmitted.
Hi, my name is Candy Chamberlain. I'm the school nurse at Washington Avenue Elementary. What can we do to protect ourselves and others from getting sick during the school year? Washing our hands frequently and thoroughly with soap and water, covering our coughs and sneezes,
using hand sanitizer appropriately, checking our temperature before school every day, even when feeling well, staying home when sick.
Fever of 100.3 or higher, cough, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing.
Chills, repeated shaking with chills, muscle pain, or headache.
Sore throat, cough or congestion, new loss of taste or smell, persistent diarrhea, and vomiting.
If your child has tested positive for COVID-19 and they have symptoms, they must be fever-free, improve respiratory symptoms, and have 2 negative tests at least 24 hours apart to return to school.
If your child has tested positive but does not have symptoms, they must remain home for 10 days. Before returning to school, they must have a medical release from their healthcare provider.
If your child has been around somebody that has been diagnosed with COVID-19, they'll need to stay home for 14 days following the time of their exposure.
All RISD families will have access to a registered school nurse. You're welcome to call them at any time with questions during the school day. We will continue to follow CDC guidelines and will be working with our local health department and community healthcare providers and resources to provide the best care and support possible.
We know this is an emotional and challenging time. The health of our staff and students is our top priority in the Roswell Independent School District. Thank you for entrusting us with the health and safety of your children, and thank you for doing your part to help us keep everyone safe and healthy.
On this video, we tried to be informational and provide support as we go through this process. There's 3 things I want to bring up. First of all the water fountains are covered. They're not open to the public for anybody to use. They will be closed. As a reminder, we will have 2 bottles of water every day for every student. So that will be there in place. That was the one part on that model we have to keep in place. The other thing is that we're very fortunate to have all the nurses that we do have, and they have been exemplary. I just want to let the board know how hard they have worked with us and for our staff and students. And I promise you, if we do something wrong, they're the first ones to call me. And they're not afraid to call. So just know that your nurses represent you very, very well. I'm very proud of all the help that they've done. The other thing that I don't have for you in PowerPoint or anything, at this point in time, without all administrators, without AESC, and without maintenance yet, we have about 236 staff that are still needing the vaccine, that want the vaccine. So 236. And that number goes up and down, not up, but down because of getting calls at other places to get the vaccination. We had like 15 called today and changed that. I've already got my vaccination. You can add somebody else to the list. So we had all those changes, and we'll be doing that until tomorrow night when we go back and get our tomorrow's going to be a big day. We get our second round for the first group, and we start our next group. So we've been very fortunate working with the community on that effort and appreciate the board's support on that. And again, the nurses were there to help us, and a lot of staff to get the vaccination and the surveillance testing done. We've had a lot of problems with surveillance testing. I think that's all on the video that I have. The next thing I'm going to have is the PowerPoint. I know it's very long. I will go fairly fast until you have questions. The only thing I'm asking the board is when you ask a question, make sure you move up to your mic, because we've got a lot of people online and they want to hear what's being asked and what's being said. So it's their right to hear that, so please make sure you use your microphone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.
And just for those out there viewing, I did ask Mr. Braggs to turn up the volume, but he said it was max.
It's already
So,
maxed.
yeah.
That's correct. I will make both the video and this available to the public once the board has made its decision whether or not to go in. I don't want to put anything out there if we decide not to, but if we decide to, then I'll make it public. So confusion is real easy, and rumors and rampants are pretty rampant right now. So we want to go through that. Here are some underpinning requirements for hybrid. That means you have no choice on these. Again, this is where we've asked that give the board back their authority, and this is where we've been told these are the things you have to do, okay? Guiding principles for entry is rooted in the following principles. You must prioritize health and safety of our students, staff, and community, maximize the amount of safe in-person learning opportunities, make decisions based on science and data. As I sent you the latest report, 2 different reports on pediatric and the transmission rates. There's 2 big things that we have to remember for a school district, whether we're in hybrid, full, or remote. We must get everyone to understand, everyone in our community, they need to wash their hands, and they need to do that consistently. They must maintain social distance, and they have to wear a mask. So if you get parents that call you, board members, and say, I have a doctor's note that my child can't wear a mask, the answer is, unless they're an IEP or 504, and we have the proof, the guidance from the PED and DOH is you tell those parents they're going to be remote learning. It is that important that we wear a mask and we play it safe for everybody. Individual person. All right, this is that decision tree that you saw them talk about. This is very important. This is important whether we go back or not. This helps people understand whether if you're sick, you should go out shopping. You go out to get something to eat and bring it back home. You come to school, whatever the situation. We want to make sure that this is public. We do have it in Spanish and in English. The schools have already sent it out or are sending it out. Either way, it's that important. So there's the symptoms. You heard Katie talk about this before. We've talked about this decision tree. There's been a few changes in it. but that kind of gives you an idea of how that decision, or what they call individual person, but that is called the decision tree. There are 10 things that are required. This is page 4. There are 10 things that are required by New Mexico Department of Education. The guidances are non-negotiable. The first is to begin, all school districts across the state are permitted to operate strictly according to the hybrid model. And we'll talk about what is a hybrid. COVID-safe practices, and the county meets the New Mexico PED and DOH public health criteria. Right now, the governor has waived the red, yellow, green for the hybrid. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's always going to have both sides, and that's the great thing about this country is we can be on all sides at the same time. So we have our chance to debate. Schools must participate in surveillance testing. We are right now doing 10 and 12% of our staff. If we go into hybrid, we go to 25%. So within 1 month, 100% of in-person teaching must be in surveillance testing. Must be. No choice. That is one of the requirements. 3, schools must always adhere to the social distancing requirements. Schools must restrict large group gatherings. And we'll have to talk about graduation later on. All pre-K and elementary schools must cohort pods. That means staying to their classrooms. Even when you go to if you go to the cafeteria, when you pick up your lunches, go back to your classrooms. Those things, if you go outside for a recess break, you heard we've worked out with the union so that we can have people on duty outside. That schools have already said, this area is for Mr. Gottlieb's class. This area is for Ms. Kirk's class. So that they stay within their cohort, because what you don't want to do is start mixing as much as possible. Face coverings are required. Now, you're going to get this earlier. I have to send 2 reports weekly to the PED. And this goes with another PowerPoint, but you need to see what we have on hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty small. It was difficult to read. I tried to
It's so
enlarge
much
it.
information.
Yeah, I tried to
As a
enlarge
board
it.
member, I had to share this with you. And I do this weekly by school as we move forward. So as you can see, for example, Mona, how many student masks do we have on hand? If you look at the very bottom, I give you by school what they have on hand, and then a total. So if you look right down here at the very bottom.
50,000?
Yeah.
50,000.
115.
Do we have enough masks for kids? The answer is yes. Look at what you have across on there. We have masks. We have disposable masks. We have gowns. We have face shields. We have N95s, KN95s. We have, guess what I didn't have to do this. I kept up with the soap. I kept up with our hand sanitizers. I kept up with the wipes that we've bought in to put in the classrooms. All those things are there for you to see, read, and see what we're reporting weekly to the PED and Department of Health.
So can those masks be interchanged, like the adult cloth mask? Can it be interchanged?
Well, what we have done is that there is a child's mask. We have children's mask.
I see that.
And we have adult masks. Now, guess what? The middle school and high school, you really have to vary on those issues. So we right now, they're all adult size, but what you can do is make, if you have a very small student, you just tie it in the back. If they have students that need small children's masks at the middle school and high school, all they have to do is ask me, because if you notice, there's a place in there that says AESC. Guess where all those supplies are? In my office. And they are immediately dispensed as it's requested. See this lady right here? She spends a lot of time doing that for me. It takes several of us to run the business. So that kind of gives you an idea what we have in the building, what we've been tracking, and this is done weekly. Number 7, all staff must screen daily. You heard the nurses talk about the screening of daily. You also heard one of the principals. All sites must work with state and local health officials to create a plan, contact tracing. The nurses have been trained. Katie was trained by DOH. They have done a remarkable job on contact tracing. So has Jessica Mendez, so has the nurses Jessica Mendez, Katie. I know I'm leaving somebody out. I hate to say names because then somebody will say, Mike, you forgot my name. But we do a lot of contact tracing. I'll give you an example. We had an example at one of our schools, a little one had COVID, but because of that, with the contact tracing that we had to do, we had to put 14 people out of school for 14 days. And that's the way this system works, board members. That means if you have a documented case, we do our contact tracing, you're out for either 10 or 14 days the way it stands right now, following all the rules. You know me, I'm a rule follower. I've had people say, well, you don't have to quite do it that way. And I said, listen, if I'm asking the board to do something, I want to make sure I do it right. So we're going to follow all the regulations to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
All sites must work, okay, we got the bus transportation requirements, and we'll have a part for that from Chris. All staff must wear a face mask, we know that. All students must sit together on a bus, 2 maximum. School and hybrid category must take all reasonable steps to limits to 1 seat. I can tell you for our district and our size, that's going to be quite difficult. It's going to be 2 in a seat. Meals will be provided, and I'll have Kim talk a little bit more about meals down the road. Safety plan checklist for COVID-19 and responses. 2-layered mask, 2-layer mask per student, per staff, as additional disposable, as you can see those in there. 20 medical masks or N95 or KN95. That's particularly for our very, very close students with special needs staff. I have another 3,000 surgical masks coming. I've added it on the list. They're supposed to be here today, but they haven't arrived, just like the gowns, so that I can get 20 for every student. We also receive from the PED, per school, they sent an entire box of more masks of all types. So we know we're covered at this point in time for all areas. At the request of an employee, reusable, disposable, full-length gowns. We got the gowns, as I've told you, so all those in place. Our sanitizer is anywhere from 62 to 70%, depending upon what we could buy. So we met all those requirements. Employees who work with staff in COVID schools, nurse isolation room. As you saw the isolation room, and thanks to Mr. Edwards, great idea. You saw those dividers. Now we have it every place. I probably could buy a couple more, and I need to visit with Katie on that. There's some schools that I've done some visits, and I said, you know what? We really could use one more here. That's a good safety as we go through. The PPE point person, you're looking at that person. Everybody is busy, so I just took that PPE point person for the district. That's on page 7.
So that's you?
That's me. So I can go up to Mr. Cole and say, Mr. Cole, I need another $10,000 for gloves. And that's just exactly what we spent. You know what a box of gloves cost us now? $20 a box. You know what they were February of last year?
About $7 a box.
Cheaper.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
When you buy in bulk, much cheaper, like $3.99.
Wow.
Supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
Supply and demand. So this way I can keep that contact tracing. I can be responsible. If something is bad, I want the PED to come after me. I don't want them to come after a staff member because I didn't order something ahead of time. And Maria Hernandez is a jewel. She works from the Chad's department, has really kept me up on all this stuff. Districts must have a COVID-19 point person. That is Katie. And then each building has one, and that's the nurse. So we have backups. Katie also has backups. So we know we can cross-train and cross buildings in case we have someone out. Districts must have in place more than 50% of the enrollment. Now here's the only difference to this, but please listen carefully. It's 50% of the enrollment, 50% of the elementary teacher's classroom. However, special ed, We were supposed to get waiver forms. We have not received that yet. Now, can we just waiver? And Dr. Stewart was very plain on this. And when Dr. Stewart tells me something, it's gospel. It's just the way it is. Is that there will be waivers for special ed, but it better not be every special ed student. It is according to their IEP and needs that need to be in place. What does that mean? Some of them will be in for 3 days. Some will be in for 4 days. It's not dependent upon you board members. It's not dependent upon me. It's dependent upon that IEP team and the needs of those child. So I just want to make sure, because you're going to hear somebody say something, and guess what? We're going to follow the IEP. That's federal law. That's a mandate. I have to read and abide by all the cohort requirements. I have to make sure we maintain the CDC-approved cleaning supplies, which we have. You have sufficient custodial resources. Have you noticed I keep up with that? By the way, I also bought extra Kyvac machines for the school district. Why? You can't get parts right now. So if one breaks down, let's say Nancy Lopez, if it breaks down and you can't get parts, now you're going back to the old-fashioned way. We don't want to go back to the old-fashioned way. We want to clean, keep everything separated, and make sure it's done properly. So I bought extra to have on hand.
Good.
They can swap them out as we need it. Once we get the parts, we'll fix them. But getting parts right now is darn near impossible.
How many Kyvacs did you purchase?
10.
Okay.
10 extra. So
So
I
each
wanted to make
building
sure.
has one plus stockpile of 10.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure we had plenty on hand. I don't want any of this to say, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't have one.
Yeah. And
And if the board wants me to buy 5 more, I'll buy 5 more. I mean, this is an important piece of equipment. It is that important. You have established a written protocol, as you well know, in the very early parts of the summertime, and I sent to you both in Spanish and English our checkoff list. Our custodial daily cleaning list. And I have gone out to the buildings, I have inspected their books, they better have a sign off on it. Now, can I say everything's done all the time? Well, I'd lie to you if I could promise you that, but the principals have been very good on this, they understand this, they understand the necessity of having all this done. So this is done daily at all our sites, and then we have it in Spanish and English because some of our custodians need it in Spanish, so it's very easy. We had it translated, so we make sure that those were in place. Wednesday is our deep cleaning day. The only change, if we go to hybrid, I'm going to make is dismissal for our staff on Wednesdays at 12. I want a longer time to clean to make sure we get everything done. So everybody will leave the building except the administrators and the custodians. I want everybody out. We can continue our office hours with our students. We can continue with PDP development. Those things are in place, but I want everybody out of the building. This way, I am ensured that everything's being done to make sure when we change groups, we've done all the right things. One of the questions I didn't put in there, I'm sorry. We bought 10 disinfecting backpacks. So when we disinfect an area, for example, Goddard takes 6 hours. Can you imagine what Roswell High takes us to disinfect a building? That's why we bought 10, so we can have a crew go in at one time. And let me tell you, within 15 minutes, anything it lands on is disinfected. Now, it's only good for that time, but that's why we had Honeywell talk to you about the filters, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I also have to have established written, we have all that. We have passed, and you have received the 2 reports on our air filtration system. So where we can't put in the MERV 13 filters, we're using the 8s. We put in the M waves. And in those schools, there's 7 schools, $35,000 per school. Wow. That's not cheap. And where we couldn't put that device, we put what they call a strip. And Sean, Miss Morales, is Sean on the phone? Okay, could you, Sean, I'm going to ask you a question. We have the M-Wave, we have the M13, the filters. There was another filtering system we purchased. What was that? I'll get that to you, board.
Okay.
There's another filtering system. We also have box fans for large areas. Hey, Sean, are you on? Must not be. I'll get that.
Mr. Gottlieb, this is Chad Cole.
Yes, sir.
So I believe the other device that we're talking about for air filtration is a plug-in device that plugs directly into a wall socket and introduces the air across an ionization strip. So it's very similar to the ionization strips that we're putting in individual facilities systems that will allow it. For those that don't, we have a plug-in system, and I believe that's what you're referring to, sir.
There's also one other, and I'll get that to the board. The other thing you need to know, and this is not cheap, board members, to change our filters out on a quarterly basis is going to cost us $500,000. This is not an expense you've had before. This is a new additional expense. So this is not a cheap thing. We have taken this thing very seriously. We have followed, as you can see, our plans have been accepted and approved, not alone by the PED and the DOH, but PSCOC. A lot of people looked at our plans. We have everything certified. It's in place. It's good for 1 year. You have to redo this all over again next year. So that's in place to have that idea on the filters. And then you have to read and review the COVID-19 toolkit. I've sent you the toolkit, but I have to sign off on all that stuff. Okay, this has been a big one for Mrs. Sanchez. We're on page 9 of the PowerPoint. We have spent a lot of time with that. I know I sent you some sad information from this weekend. It's one of those things that can be very emotional for a lot of people. Regarding social emotional learning and SEL, Jennifer and her staff, the counselors, have done an outstanding job. I am hoping that our group of teachers that are in the counseling, that we've paid for to go to counseling, do become counselors. We need a lot more counselors. We need a lot more counselors. I think bringing back our kids the next 2 to 3 years is going to be very difficult. I'm just going to warn you. I've kept you up as much as I possibly can. This kind of gives you an idea where we're at. Regarding social and emotional learning, counselors have created daily check-ins. You've seen that. We're ahead of the game. We've been doing this. Electronic referral process, as you see, that's in place, and it's also on our webpage. I don't know if you've noticed that on our webpage. There is a place to report on there if you need it. We've established a counselor corner on school websites, initiate the SEL check-in at process at secondary school. That's going to take us a little longer. Secondary takes a little longer. We have another way to check on that I have discussed with you before, and that's how we've caught a lot of the issues with staff and students. So we'll keep that part as is. Students' threats and assessments, review the process with secondary counselors. We're ongoing with that, ongoing training. And I think that training is going to be ongoing for quite some time, to be quite honest. It is quite a change. Online platforms to house assessment in progress, development of counselor and social work community of practicing PLCs. Trauma-informed practices, training for all principals, January 25th. Training for all mentors. As you can see, we've even trained the mentors. After-school professional development and trauma-informed practices in school books for all administrators. So we've spent as much time as we possibly can, plus everything else that has to be going on, trying to make sure our kids safe and our staff. All right, here's the MERV 13 filter report that I handed out to you on page 10. That gives you what was approved by the state and where it's at by building. So you can see where it's at building and where we've spent the extra money on that process. Here's the letter from the PED, Public School Authority, on this issue. And it continues the frequency of that, so I kind of give you an overview of everything for the filters and the process that we're using. Family choice. What do the choices the family have as board members? One, students and families want to return to hybrid would have the opportunity to return 2 days per week. Second option is student and families want to remain fully remote would continue with the current model. The third option is student and families that would select at Apex would continue. So they have three options for them as we move forward. Page 14, timeline for board approves. Now, you notice I have February 3rd, question mark, question mark, question mark, because I don't know. It all depends upon the board. RISD, and this is a requirement. This is not a choice. So if we go to hybrid of any type, let me repeat that, we have to do this. This is not a choice for the board. We must be inspected by the fire marshal. If the board makes that decision, I go up to my room and I'm going to email them either way, yes or no, to start setting up the process, because they have to set up a process, and we'll talk about that a little bit longer, what timeline that takes. They have to inspect the classrooms, social distancing, inspect hallways, cafeterias, signage. I think some of you have been in the buildings, have seen all the signage. We have a lot of signage. Inspection of air filters and quality enhancement. Wherever they go, they sign a card when it's been changed. For example, I went and inspected several schools, and I looked at the card and I said, all right, this needs to be changed. I look at that quarterly report, so I actually go and look at the filters myself. Inspection of personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies. Every school, as you saw on your list, has those things at their site. Now, when it's used, I've told the principals, you let me know, or if I see it, I give it to Miss Julie, and Julie sends it to those schools on a pretty consistent basis. Review school plans for infant safety and hygiene protocols. Review plans to comply with COVID-safe practices, as you've been seeing what we're going through. That is the social distancing, that's the mask, that's the 6 foot, that's how you're setting up your cafeteria. For example, did you notice all the cafeterias that were using cafeterias, not in the classroom? They're all facing one direction. They can't face each other, one direction. These are some other guidelines that we have to follow. Administrators will need to plan well in advance to allow scheduling and email Mr. Grossman. Mr. Grossman is the one from the PED I must contact either way tonight to give him how the board voted. An example, I want to jump to that example. For example, if you plan to open on February 15th, you will have to notify Mr. Grossman by Tuesday, February 2nd. It went to sleep on me. It's tired. Nope.
Actually, it was working. We were live.
Allow for a total of 2 weeks for completion of the required site.
Technology.
Uh-huh.
So 2 weeks from today.
So, Mr. Gottlieb, as far as all this in place, does each building have to receive that certification of readiness?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that's on my next
Oh,
page,
that's
Ms.
next.
Sanchez, as we go forward. We're going to show the video,
There you go.
and then there's a checkoff sheet. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. You led it to my next part. There is a checkoff sheet that the fire marshal will be using as they go through each school to ensure that we have our things in place. Notice what number C says. No district or school can open successful sites without a visit. Pretty simple. It don't matter what you vote. We have to have that visit. And I gave you an example of how that works. School staff will be fully changed over into buildings within the days in February. Notice I left the date blank. Notify families of hybrid assignments and dates. What does that mean? You have an A and you have a B. We said A through L and M through Z, but guess what, guys? It's never balanced. Never. So I have asked the principals, if you have an overbalance where that 50% is not there, that 50-50, what we need to do is select kids in the M through Z, that's where we're heavy, to move over to the A through L, but select those kids who don't have siblings that are in high school or middle school, particularly elementary, because in case they have to help with childcare at home. So we've worked on that issue. I would like to start, if we do this, I'd like to start with the elementary first 1 week. roll into secondary the second week as we work things through. Teachers would have 2 days to work in their classroom. They've been in their classroom since March, be quite honest.
So will the feeder elementaries and middle schools work with the high schools, with families that have 3, 4, 5
We
siblings
have tried our very
schools?
best, Mona.
Okay.
It's not
good.
going to be perfect. And what the 2 high school guys, because this is really the high schools where it's going to be the problem,
Yes,
is they
yes.
said they'd work with the parents individually to get them in the right
middle
groups.
school and elementary. Good, thank you.
Now remember, here's the problem about high school. You have individual classes. Your class is not the same as the next class. I mean, everybody's schedule is so different and so unique. That's what makes high school scheduling so difficult. And those kids deserve the rights just as everybody else. So we will work with families so that the 6th and 9th grade, I think this is critical, that we bring back that week of the elementary, the Thursday, Friday, that we bring back our A group of 6th graders and 9th graders, and on the B day, bring back the M through Z. So those kiddos who have never been, and that's pretty scary.
It is.
It's
For
very
ninth
scary
graders, yes.
for the 6th graders to experience the school without the 7th and 8th graders there, and the 9th graders to be there to experience that high school area. As I told you before, how would you like to be in Goddard and not know what stairway to go? And since Goddard has all the one-way directions in it, just like all the other schools, you're going up one set of stairs. When you come up, if you don't know Goddard, you're going to be lost. I promise you. I even still get turned around every once in a while. So it's not an easy thing. Okay, here I know that's the PPE report. You've already seen that. This is the staff and student report I have to do weekly. I told you I'd provide you every handout where you can't read something. This I have to turn in to the DOH and PED every week. And this is part of contact tracing. They want to see who's in the building, what's going on, and so forth. So when we start going to hybrid, those numbers are going to start going up. And they're going to measure with that letter I sent you today about warnings. If you get 4 warnings in your building from the PED, and it's usually from Dr. Stewart, that you have had 4 cases of COVID, and we have to send home that letter to all the staff, all the parents, that means you're closed for 14 days. So expect some rolling. This will happen. We don't have a choice in this. So this is that report that they see from me every week. Here's the school check cleaning list. You've seen that since we've talked about it. Emergency drills. You notice that was one of the other things. That's page 20. Emergency drills. That's one of the requirements. Here we go. There you go. Miss Julie has it all ready for us.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted you to see what LJ put together for our emergency requirement, which is different than our traditional one, because there's some requirements during the pandemic we have to follow. So LJ put this together for all of you to have. It's already at the school sites. We have it in place. And as you know, with LJ, he's pretty thorough through his process.
And it's amazing process.
It's a very good process. As you heard Travis talk about it for Valley View, he already knew his process. He already knew what was in place. Because guess what? We still have to do our practices. And not just once, but now you have to do it for the A group the same amount of times as you do for your B group. So we're going to be spending some time on drills. I'm just going to tell you. So that's those 2 points. And again, we wanted to make sure everybody noticed that the fire marshal may be there, the police department may be there, the sheriff department may be there, because they're in charge of also those critical aspects as we're moving back and forth. All right, Julie has another one for you. This is what the school buildings have to do. Not a choice, not a maybe, but no. This is a must. And this is straight from the toolkit that you've seen that's out on the public for everybody to see. And it outlines for you. I know the white is very hard to read. I had to take a picture of it and include it in this. And that's that one for now. Just the one for now. On the far right, That's the solid, the green, the lime green one. Those are the 10 things that we have no choice. As you heard from the principals, they have a book. It has all that stuff in there. We have checked those to make sure it's in place. Each school, in the blue in the middle, each school has a prepared plan, duty list. We haven't got to that point yet because the board hasn't taken a vote on that. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's some principals have already done that. Identify isolation areas for students. You've seen that. And then down below, how will be in the bus, who will be last, sending staff home, pick up of students, and so forth. I don't know, Ms. Kirk, you went to Goddard, I believe. You had a tour of Goddard. Did Mr. Luck give you a tour of how he's going to have sick kids come in and out? Did he explain that to you?
No.
Okay. Each school
Well,
is
he
little.
probably did, but there was so much information.
Okay. Do you know
so-
where the tennis courts are at Goddard?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'll give you a prime example. They have an overflow room. So we have our isolation room, but the building principals have also found an overflow room. So in case we have several, we have to isolate at a time, or they're just sick. They don't have COVID, they're just sick. We need places for kids or staff. So Mr. Luck took a room right there on the side.
Yes.
There's an extra room there. The parents will be called. They will come to the office, get permission to pick up the child. They'll tell the parent where to go. They'll have administrator there. They'll get the child or the staff member, and they'll get to their car.
Yes.
So those are the things that if the board says yes, we still have, you may think lots have been done. We have done lots, but there's still a lot more to do, okay? And then the very first one, leaders and deputies, head nurses, HR, director operations, principals, assemble COVID-19 district planning and response team. As you know, we've been doing that since June of last year. Safe practice walkthrough, that's the one from the fire marshal. That's the things that they'll be checking as they go through. You already have that one. Additional information you need to know. That's page 24. Student learning. We know that there's no substitute for in-person learning. No matter how good we are online, it's not the same. It does not develop that connection with our students. At the college level, maybe some of our seniors, you can do a lot of that. However, the failure rate is still quite high for adults at college level, online courses. We recognize that. So we're trying to plan as safe possible as we can. We also know that in-person learning supports students' social and emotional well-being. We're trying now. We're not doing the job that should be. I'll be quite honest. It's not the same thing when you can have that student with you right there. Building sending plans. By the end of December, we followed several toolkits. Notice I said several toolkits. I think we're on our 5th or 6th toolkit. And this is one thing I have learned through this process of the pandemic. It's going to change. It is going to change. Mr. Edwards.
Who sets up the toolkits? I think that needs to be put out there. Who does the toolkits for the district?
It comes from the PED.
Okay, so that's coming
So
from
the
the
public
PED.
ed department, and I know not everybody understands the PED, so the public education department works with the Department of Health.
Right.
This is not done in isolation. So they work with them and they look at the situations. That's why I say you have to be willing to change, because if you're not willing to change, you're in the wrong job, because nowadays, during this crisis, we have to be willing to change. There's no choice in that. Depending on how the board votes, we'll contact PED for arrangements of the fire marshal for our inspection. That's Mr. Grossman. Air filters and maintenance plans have been passed and inspected. That's been going on. Community percentage and staff data. Okay. And I had one mother call me today, and she said, Mr. Gottlieb, I really appreciate you reaching out to you, but will you stop your surveys? I've answered it 5 times already this week. I said, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. In January, both staff and parents were polled to determine the interest to returning to hybrid when the eligibility, yes or no. Elementary level, we had 2,359 people who took the survey. 158 that took the survey in Spanish. Here's the results for the elementary. Students survey, 74.6 or 75% of the parents said, please return to hybrid. The Spanish survey was much lower, was at 57%, and that number was 158. Some of that, Ms. Sanchez, from the best I can understand, for the community people that didn't hear what she said why. I heard it, which is surprising over my tinnitus, I heard that. But what is going on is the belief is because of the language barrier, not all the information is reaching everybody. And that is a problem. As much as the principals are sending stuff out in English and Spanish, and we see those, not everything does make it. And so there is that problem. So you're always going to have that lag time trying to play catch up. So thank you for the question, Ms. Sanchez. I know maybe you didn't want to get that out, but I heard you say why. And
Mr. Gottlieb? Work on it.
I've heard that study, and that study's pretty accurate.
Yeah, the community will have to work on that.
Yes. It's not just Roswell.
No.
It's not just New Mexico, because we got a lot of different languages.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you separated the staff survey data to find out what the remote teachers only say? Because I think this staff survey, it's 693 staff, but we have 546 remote teachers. So I'm interested in specifically what those teachers.
All I did on this was I give it to the staff to do the survey.
But that includes aides,
Everybody.
secretaries.
Everybody.
So we don't have the data for teachers
No,
alone?
not just teachers alone. No, I do not. Because guess what? It takes everybody to run a school district.
Yep.
I have to have the custodians, I have to have the bus drivers, I have to have the nurses, I have to have the EAs. And I understand your question, Ms. Morales. I think that's a very important question. I know the building principals know that because they've been asking the staff, because there's some points I want to talk to you later on, or I'll wait for your questions, whatever. Secondary level, we had 2,588 in English and 77 in Spanish. The English said 63.3 said yes, return. Spanish was 54. Notice that's significantly lower than the elementary. Well, don't forget, we have our apex in place. And that's about 8%. So if you would add 8% back into that, and why we use apex, that is a true online curriculum. Once you start, you need to finish it. Now, it's long. I will promise you. Is it thorough? It is thorough. I would challenge you to take French or Spanish or AP chemistry or just Algebra 1 on there. You would be shocked. It's quite difficult. It's a good program. But once they're on it, they need to really finish it. So you have 8% right there that are on that model. And Ms. Morales did bring up a good point. That's all the staff. Now, how many staff we have? About 1,200. So that kind of gives you an idea of the number that answered back on the survey. We did remind the principals. We did ask them to say, please get your parents out. And that's why the parent had so many calls, because the teachers are asking, the principals asking, everybody's asking, please get to your survey. Many school districts just stuck with the one they did either late winter, late fall. I wanted a more current one. I think that was more important to do it now, to give the board good information.
And I received 3 robocalls reminding me.
I wanted robo-text, but because we had problems with Power School, we couldn't do it. A text message is a heck of a lot easier for parents to answer. Okay, what is hybrid? Because not everybody understands hybrid. That's 50% of the building, 50% of the teacher classroom for the elementary. On Monday and Tuesday would be A through L in person for students. P.S. We must balance out numbers, so principals will be moving students on A or B day as needed in working families. Wednesday's teacher professional development and deep cleaning will be out of the building by 12. In the middle there, you notice I stuck that about A and B times for special ed, and then Thursday, Fridays, N through Z for students. And I kept that same message up there because it's pretty important.
So, Mr. Gottlieb, I understand that our elementary level, the kiddos will stay with their same cohort in class most of the day. They'll be allowed to do things like recess, PE, have access to speech, all that stuff. I understand our high school students will likely be rotating to different classes, following all the procedures you already said. But what does it look like at the middle school level? Are they gonna have to stay in class, or will they get to swap?
I haven't, some are gonna stay in class, some want to rotate, so I haven't got to that model yet. And the reason being is I wanna see how you vote. Let me tell you how hard this is to get this in place. Where we already are right now, not knowing how you're gonna vote, I have put so much pressure on the principals right now, some of them about ready to crack, and I'm quite honest, I'm not joking. I've put a lot of pressure on them. So I have some different models working right now. I know Jennifer met with them this afternoon. I had to go meet with a group of parents this afternoon that wanted to talk to me privately. So I sat down and talked to them privately.
Nice.
To meet with them and their concerns. And so I took care of that issue. So Jennifer went ahead and met with the middle school. So we're going to be modeling that very differently. And it could be different by site.
Right.
One thing that you're going to find out from me is that I would like everybody in the district to do the same. There's some things we're all going to do the same, but there's some things that are unique to each building.
And I know our smaller schools will have a little bit more flexibility being
Yes.
smaller. Do we have any type of plans in place with extra support substitutes to help those larger schools?
We're having a hard time with substitutes. We are advertising again for more substitutes of all kind, not just teachers. We're having all issues with substitute. Here's the problem. I don't have the vaccination for them yet, and there's a lot of them that want the vaccination. I am lucky to get where we're at, and we're very blessed. I'll be quite honest, if you've noticed what happened in northern New Mexico. And I don't have somebody that has a lot of money, and I won't go into that portion at all. I've spoke to one board member about this. So in my heart, I feel we need to vaccinate all the staff that want to be vaccinated. I'm working hard on that. We've pushed hard on that. Some of the staff are willing to come back and work until they get the vaccination. I understand that. So it just depends. It's just like Mr. Edwards, I haven't had the vaccination. And guess what? I'm everywhere. And I've told the principals, you're not getting the vaccination through us yet, unless you have a medical concern. If they have a medical concern, yes, I got them the vaccination. And everybody that had a medical concern, they got their vaccination, I promise you. If I knew about it. They have to inform me. If I don't know about it, I can't do it. We have been very blessed. I will truly tell you, and our union has worked with us on this issue too. But I've told administrators, we're last. We're dead last. We have to be. I think it's that important. So I also need vaccinations for the subs, particularly when you're introducing them into an environment. So we're working on that. I can only push as hard as how do I put this? As fast as the state of New Mexico will allow me. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Cole mentioned that back when he gave his presentation, that y'all are working with the unions for the employees' kids for
Daycare.
Daycare on Thursday and Friday. So
Yes.
that means they'll be attending Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday.
And then, perfect. Okay, I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that is elementary through middle school, not high school. Not high school. So we're working with those, and we're giving them that opportunity if they want to take it.
Nice.
So, and that ratio instead of 1 to 5 will be 1 to 10. And it's daycare, so we're fine on that. Okay. Just so that rest the board's nerves, they call that daycare, and the state is okay with us doing the daycare issue. Here's an example. I've not asked this from the building principal. This is one building principal that went ahead and did it for me so I could show it to you, of procedures. And I know Mr. Dolan knows who this is. The morning procedures, all staff will complete daily screening, as you saw in the video. All staff will sign in at the front entrance or on their app. All students and staff must wear a mask. On campus, students will social distance at all times. I know we're going to work on that. Students who come to school before 7:45. That's been a big question from the elementary, big one. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to monitor the 6-foot distance. We're going to have to bring them in the building. We can't have them together on the playground. We're going to have to put them in the multipurpose rooms or in the hallways.
Yeah.
Like
And that's one thing Mr. Luck did show me where they have a holding.
Right.
room.
And we'll have to put it, now, the problem is that means you're gonna do some crossing. But I don't have a choice, because guess what? Once we start back in hybrid, parents are bringing their kids to us, to you, for safety, for education. So we have to make sure, and they may have to be at work at 7:30. Our schools don't open up at 7:45. Principals, whoever's there, you're gonna have to make sure that those things are covered. We'll have to have rotating on that, the best we can on that issue. As you can see at this building, at 7:45, K through 3, we enter through the southeast doors, walk through the classrooms. At 7:45, 4th and 5th grade, we enter through the gym and walk through the classrooms. Almost everywhere we have one way, with the exception where it's difficult, and where we don't have those one-way arrows, we'll have dual arrows, but it has to be split down the middle. Students will enter in the classroom, go straight to their desk, tardy. Now, here's one thing that we have to do for the fire marshal. Some of the buildings have taken out all their desks except enough for the 6-foot distance. Some have left the desk in there, but they're two together. So on one is A day, one is B day. The problem is I've told them, you have to wipe down both desks.
Yeah.
After the A day and after the B day, because guess what? Kids are kids. Adults are adults. They're going to put their stuff just like I did to Mr. Dolan. I'll lay everything on his side. So we'll have to clean both desks, and the fire marshal has to have them marked as A desk and B desk, because your measurements are going to be a little bit different if you don't do that. Has to be still 6 foot. Breakfast procedures, rosters will be sent with the totes, just like we've done before on snow days. Students must take one of each item to the tote. Only choice is milk, non-flavored, or chocolate. Must have an entry fruit and milk. Bottle of water will be sent for each student. That will be 2. In the morning. No fountains open. Lunch procedures, duty teachers will bring lunches to the classroom. Students will eat in the classroom. This is elementary, remember, at the assigned desk. We're probably going to, after the unions help the last couple days, what we'll probably do is we'll have teachers assigned on duty, pay them the stipend, so that we do like snow days. And so the kids are eating in the classroom, the teacher gets to go eat, but we have somebody monitoring that process. And they have to stay at their desk. They can't get up. They can't wander around like a snow day. That's one of those things we'll do. We'll escort them outside, keep them in their pods, 6 foot distance apart for the recess. Page 27. After school procedures are going to be a little bit different, and don't forget we'll be offering EOPT at the schools. So we'll have to have a different arrangement for that after school. I haven't worked on that yet because that takes the board to approve. And if we're not going to approve, then I don't need to work on that part. But that's another part we'll have to do. The afternoon procedure for this school, this is for dismissal. So this is the dismissal after school procedure. Here are the things we must have in place. If you keep hearing me saying this and you're not going to hear me stop. Face masks, hand washing, social distancing, one-ways is everywhere that's possible, and visitors. You are not coming into our building and walk through the building. Board members, it's your building. You may go into the building anytime you want. You don't have to call me. It's always nice if you say, hey, Mike, I'm going in. I appreciate that. But if you want to go visit a school once we open up the hybrid, and I encourage you to, because if you noticed in the toolkit and all the information I sent to you, it's very plain there. You see something illegal, report it. I'd rather have you report it to me than Dr. Stewart giving me a call. Okay? It's a lot easier for me.
And Mr. Gallup, I just want to make a statement to our families. We have a lot of folks watching. Is the morning and after school procedures, our families are going to have to be patient on this.
Yes.
It's going to take more time. We're going to have to learn. So this is one of the areas that they may see right away that's different than before if we approve it. So we're going to need their patience on a lot of things, and this is going to be one.
Well, that will be including bus routes, because remember, we're going to have to dismiss by bus. So we'll say, Miss Morales, your classroom bus students can go. And then we got a little bit of break time. So everything's going to be, the time frame is going to be exasperated. It's going to be lengthened out. It has to. It has to. Same thing with pickup. It'll be that issue. Elementary principals are looking at this right now. There is an app that you can buy for your phone. And when that kid's parents come, you just text real quick and that app picks it up and says, okay, Ms. Morales, McKinsey's here. So you send McKinsey out. So we're looking at a variety of things. The principal that brought this to my attention was from Missouri Avenue. It's worked well for her. So we're probably going to look at this district-wide. I asked her to visit with this guy behind us to make sure that we don't have any more problems. So I hope she's visited with him. Technology can be wonderful, but it can also be a nightmare.
So so our bus systems know, both sets of bus companies, both bus companies know that in the past, it's been a 5-minute wait, and then they're gone.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that.
That concerns me.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gottlieb, are the schools going to offer the supervised mask breaks for the students that the state is requiring?
We have to do something, but here's the problem. You can take your mask off to eat, but you're supposed to wear it all the time. Now, I've seen some special ed students do something. Our teachers work with our special ed students, learning to wear masks, and those issues is they've given them a breakout where it's far away from everybody. And they said, okay, they had a timer, and they set that timer for 2 minutes.
Okay.
How we're going to do that with all the kids is going to be a challenge. And how many times a day, we haven't even got to that point yet. And I have not had any superintendent across the state talk about that either, because it's so new.
Ms. Sanchez, just to share a personal experience, my 6-year-old daughter now has to wear a face mask all day at school, and I was actually worried about that. You know, how is a 6-year-old going to leave it on all day? It has not been a problem for her at all. She hasn't complained. She takes it off for lunch appropriately. They do get a break, but she has not complained about it at all, and it hasn't been an issue for us, and she's 6.
You know what? I was surprised, because I'm a grandfather.
Right.
And,
I was surprised, yeah.
and how well the kids wear masks. They wear masks better than we do.
We do.
By far.
I agree.
By far. So, page 28, special services. You've heard me talk about special services in the IEP. The bilingual one here, there is a handout, Ms. Julie, on bilingual. This one. What I included for the board is on bilingual services. That came from the director of the PED and bilingual. I wanted some statements from her because I had some concerns, and that's the statement that she sent.
Ma'am?
And here's a better explanation that Andrea provided for the board so that you have more information as we continue with our bilingual services. It doesn't matter if I agree or not agree with it. It's one of the requirements that we have to do in the minimum, notice I said minimum amount of time. Now, if it's a high school class or a middle school that has Spanish class, it's a class. This is for our pull-out services and those things that we have to provide in the elementaries where it really impacts the most. I talked to you about the 6th and 9th grade transition, so you've already heard about that process. Additional information. This is a hot one. This is number 29.
Oh.
We have to wait, if the board votes us to go into hybrid mode, we have to wait 2 weeks before our kiddos can be part of the activity, however long that takes. Minimum. So let me just give you a what if. And this is just a what if, audience. Don't take this as gospel, please. This is a what if. So let's say the board approves this tonight. And I contact the PED tonight, let Mike Grossman know. He'll let the fire marshal know, and all the things that they got to have lined up takes 2 weeks. Okay, so what were we at? We're already in February 22nd. Then we have to be in hybrid for 2 weeks before we can go to athletics and activities. Now you're into March. Guess what? You've already missed 6 of the 7 games of volleyball. I know Coach Cooper's going to go on, he'll correct me. I'm just using that as a what if. You see what I'm saying? There's lots of complicating factors. So when Mr. Edwards called me last week or weekend, I don't remember, I've had so many calls. And he said, explain some things to me. And his remark to me, he says, Mike, my gosh, this thing has lots of moving parts. I said, yes, Mr. Edwards, this thing is huge, huge. And, you know, a normal year, you have all these things. This is not a normal year, and we're starting late. And you haven't been in school since March. I'll have Coach Cooper talk a little bit about athletics and activities. Now, if you have any pertinent questions that Coach cannot answer, we do have Sally available, and I'll call her on my phone. Okay, we can answer. So Sally offered that service to us.
Nice.
Elementary return, elementaries would be start 1 week earlier. The secondary return I've already talked to you about. Notice I left the February dates off because I don't know. That's up to you guys.
So, Mr. Gottlieb, should we save our questions for athletics and activities?
Yes.
Okay.
This is additional information to prep you for questions. Okay, professional learning to support hybrid students' learning. Provide ongoing professional development and school support, concurrent and hybrid learning, tools for concurrent learning and microphones, cameras, and cords. Support and scheduling for varying school needs. Jennifer's actually looking into some other things. If some of the teachers want, and I don't know how quick we can do this, and you know how short everything has been during the pandemic, there's actually a camera you can put in your classroom. So if the teacher's teaching, it follows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You don't need somebody there.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I've not seen that before.
We have it out at the campus.
Okay.
Nice.
So we're actually looking at that. Some of the questions I know you're going to come up with is number of staff that we have for in-person, how many for those issues.
Hybrid.
I haven't worked on that issue because I'm waiting to see what the board tells me. Because we have some time, because as you well know, we have a minimum of 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. So that gives us some time for that. I will tell you though, in-learning person is important to a lot of teachers and a lot of kids and a lot of families. Just know that. Those people that are teaching remotely, if they do not have the ADA requirements for not being in the building, they're going to teach from their classroom, not from home. So if they're teaching remotely, they're going to teach from our classrooms, our spaces. Now, if they have those ADA requirements, board, I promise you, there is no way I'm going to bring them back to school. That's just one of those things. We have that agreement with the union. So we'll follow that to the letter of the T. But if they don't, and we're just using remote, because as you saw by those numbers, 25, let's take elementary, 25% of those kiddos are going to be home. So we have to have the remote teachers at that. Now, what does that mean is you're going to have different groups of teachers doing different things now, different group of kids.
And you're going to have to find space for them.
Well, they'll probably be in their same classroom, Mona.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is that we still have, every teacher has a classroom now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're only using half of the classroom space now under the A model, the B model, so we should have plenty of space.
Okay.
There should be plenty of space.
How about for the Thursday and Friday when you have teachers' kids?
We'll find space because it's going to be 1 to 10. We may be using the library. We may be using a variety of rooms. Some buildings, it's not a problem at all. Others, where we have some big numbers, we'll be looking at that.
Okay.
We'll just have to do it. But I don't know. I know, for example, how many staff kids we have at every building. I know how many substitutes we have, and I know how many EAs we have. But I haven't dealt with the rest of this yet. I have to see what your vote is.
Okay.
Like I said, like Mr. Edwards says, this thing has lots of moving parts. Support for ELL and our special ed students and school versus remote learning. So that's all the things that Jennifer's working on to help our staff. Mr. Cooper, I sure hope you're online. Ms. Morales will unmute our phone and update by coach. No sports activity for the state until the 22nd. He's going to give you an update from the governor's office. A school district must be hybrid at least 2 weeks in the AB model to participate. You cannot participate if you don't go to hybrid. You don't go to hybrid, our kids don't get in activities or sports. Students cannot participate.
Can everyone hear me?
Hold on, coach. And students cannot participate if the district is in remote at any time. Okay, coach, updates.
Okay, like you said, fall sports, will begin officially February 22nd. That's football, volleyball, and cross country. Soccer would start a week later on March 1st. But like you said, if you wish to participate in sports, the school has to be in a hybrid model. No sports team may participate in a game until their school has been in school for at least 2 full weeks in hybrid learning. So if we started at February 22nd, we would not be able to play a game until March 5th. And, that's already going to cut where volleyball could start on the 27th and cross country. That may cost them a couple, 3 games and across country a meet. But, Sally Marcus, the NMAA, said that we could come in at any time. She just made that general statement yesterday at AD's meeting after they had their emergency board meeting. And, there's a lot of moving parts, like Mr. Gottlieb said, but, the area schools, all the schools around that are in our district, in Goddard's 4A, Roswell 5A, all of those schools have already made the decision to go hybrid. And most of them are going to start either the 8th or the 15th. I don't know if they're doing everything right or how they're getting it done, but that's their plan. So that's kind of where we're at. They did say a student could be in remote learning as long as the school is in a hybrid. So we would allow that, kind of like what we've done, in the past with homeschool, so forth. There's, as far as the mandates and all sports, just like what we've been doing with our workouts since summer, they've got to wear a mask at all times. They would have to do that in football. It's going to be tough, where they have to wear a face mask over the mouthpiece that they'd already have in. But that's the requirements. The tough one for us right now is, the locker rooms are not being allowed. So, there's a lot of things to work out. Of course, it all hinges if we're a part of it.
Mr. Cooper, I just want to make sure I understood your statement correctly. Our athletes are going to have to wear a face mask over their mouthpieces?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I had the same question for Mr. Cooper to get some verification for us. I'm a little concerned.
Do we have feedback from our nurse, Katie, or anybody? I'm assuming the state has done their research to make sure this is appropriate.
We just learned this today.
No, that was in Mrs. Marcus' presentation on Monday.
Well, I just learned it today.
Oh.
Okay, I wasn't at Miss Marcus'
No. Well,
presentation.
You video or
Sorry.
emailed it to us.
Coach, why don't you talk a little bit about what we have to do to football equipment?
Yeah.
The disinfecting that, like I said, there's a lot of planning that still needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
We've done some, but we need to see how the board goes before we go any farther. So,
Right.
Coach and I had
Well,
a discussion on that.
What the NMAA passed through yesterday, the board of directors said that the schools could start wearing helmets. They'd have to wear those 2 days, and then they could wear the shells or the pads, for 2 additional days. You have to do that before you can start a full-fledged practice on February 24th, or 22nd, But the issue is sanitation. And, what was brought up by several athletic directors was, could we, hang their equipment in their locker, let a coach take them in their pod of 4 that we're in right now, and, hang it up. And then when we had it all in there, spray everything down and disinfect and sanitize it. But they have not opened that up where we could do that. We may have to, look at another avenue of another place to do it. But, that's something we've got to look at. We really don't want to send it home. We understand, they could decide to go have a game in the park with it, and can't blame kids for being kids. But it's going to be something that we're going to have to monitor. I've talked to both head football coaches, and they both, think that we can get it done. And, we're gonna work hard to get to that means. But there are a lot of different things that are going to come up for some sports. Coming dressed is pretty easy to, wear your stuff underneath, some travel sweats, and you're ready to go. Football is a little bit different with the equipment involved, certainly with the helmet and the pads.
Questions?
Are all of the teams still gonna be in pods, whether it's football, basketball, track, and all the sports? Are they still gonna be broken down into pods where the ratio's 1 to 5?
We've been it's been the 4 to 1. A coach could oversee 2 pods and basically oversee 8 kids, but they couldn't share equipment and they couldn't throw a ball back and forth, whatever it might be. Basically, what Sally's always saying is they can't be in the same, can't breathe the same air. But, what we're looking at, with the pods, they're supposed to be lifting that on February 22nd for all sports once we go into the season. With other sports will be out of season, but that has to be approved through the governor's office. And some of this will be the 2-week trial period to see where she's going to go with this, to see if we get to go to the hybrid, and stay there as far as certainly with sports are concerned. But, it's been a little frustrating. Sally, I know, she's got the toughest job probably in the state in that aspect. She's been trying to get answers. It's been tough to get, some clarification from the governor's office. And of course, the PED, they're in line with, what the governor's orders are. So, that part, there's a lot of questions to be answered. But if we can get there, I know that all of our coaches are willing to work with us. They've been great through all these workouts and everything. The kids have been great. We've put a lot of kids in there, and, we've had very minimal, positives and so forth. Most of that has come from home, from outside source. It has not been spread within pods. It has not, had any effect on what we're doing, and the nurses have done a super job, along with the administrator, with the contact tracing and so forth. So I think that, if we're given this chance to go into hybrid, that we're going to be able to handle it. But there's going to be, like Mr. Gottlieb said, there's changes every day. And we'll just have to work through it and work together.
So, Mr. Cooper, will Ms. Marcus be putting out updates more than once a week, or does she send you that information and you send it out? How is that handled?
Everything I get, with the weekly Q&A, I get it out to the coaches and administrators every week, and I know Mr. Gottlieb usually sends that on to y'all as well. I've been very upfront and making sure that our coaches understand, what's going on, and that way they can pass it on to the kids and to have a line of communication. I know that once we get the go-ahead and Sally has complete clarification, she's going to put out sport-specific guidelines for each sport of what, everything has to be done and how it's done, from the bench area to the sidelines. They've talked about, they're going to expand the sidelines. Instead of the 20s, they'd be from 10-yard line to the other 10-yard line. But we're going to have to practice the social distancing. The questions come up, well, what about fans? Sally doesn't know yet. That's not, that hasn't been decided. She's thinking that's probably going to be difficult for the fall or maybe the winter sports. Hopefully by spring, maybe it'll open up, but we don't know. We're working on trying to get everything live streamed if that is the case. Okay. I've talked to Pecos Valley Broadcasting. They've done our games in the past and all. I've got a pretty good line with them. There's some other outlets. I've talked with Jerry Holmes of RISD, of course, and he's really good at that stuff. And I think there's some stuff we could do through YouTube with iPads. And we're talking about only the high schools have been in the workout pods and so forth since summer, but the middle schools, we intend, if we do this, Sally's wanting to play all sports at all levels, and it's a limited season. Most seasons are 5 weeks. It's going to be very compact, but we're going to do our best to make it work, and I think we can, and certainly with the cooperation of our building principals and coordinators and so forth at the buildings, I think that we can accomplish it, but it's gonna be tough.
Hey, Coach, tell them about how many people can be on the sidelines.
Well, that's still to be kind of decided. They're going to limit it. In the past, we've been able to suit up the whole JV, and even if they didn't play, they were able to suit up. But Sally hasn't set the number yet. She again wanting some questions answered that she hasn't been able to get fully answered, and but it will be limited. She just did not give a specific number.
We did have a
meeting for the other sports, we're probably looking at, what we've had in the past. Most time, a varsity team has 14 kids. You may have 4 coaches. But, the way they've got it all set out, we'd have it, you've seen it on, if you've watched any college sports or even pro sports, with the chairs distanced out, we'd have a name tag on their chairs, and that way they're sitting in the same chair, and all the sanitation stuff, our scorekeepers and clock keepers and everything would have to be, 6 feet apart, and, the referees will have to wear a mask. I think they'll have to use hand whistles. They've got those little remote with the buzzers and stuff. It's gonna be interesting to say the least.
And on that, for the board members, there will be a limited number of players that can be on the sidelines.
Yes, we just don't know that number.
I've got one more question.
Mr. Edwards has a question, Coach.
So,
Okay.
I'm getting used to being the ping pong ball here. And I know that our athletes have been the ping pong ball, because one time we got to go, the next time it's no. Is the governor, has she stepped up and said that it's okay for us to go back to sports officially?
Well, with the meeting that Sally Marcus had, along with TJ Parks, who's the superintendent of the Hobbs schools and also the president of the New Mexico activities, board of directors, the governor's office has okayed the February 22nd date. Again, I'm like you, we thought we were going to go in October with the fall sports. We had it lined up and, a week before time, but at that time, the governor had never given the permission, and that's kind of where she came off and said the NMAA can schedule games. That doesn't mean that we're going to allow them to be played. I think this is a little more concrete. I think it's a little bit different with them opening up, the possibility, of course, of going with a hybrid and all that. I think that they're serious about giving it a chance to work. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes,
We're
ma'am.
not going to be able to make the start date for volleyball and cross-country as scheduled right now, because we would have to start hybrid on February 8th, which is next week. And based on Mr. Gottlieb's explanation, there's no way that could happen. So by what date would we need to start hybrid in order to start football on time?
February 22nd.
So that would start the games that first weekend of March?
Yes, ma'am, because football is basically in a 2-week practice period. They've got to be, first week of acclimation and so forth, and then they go on in. But they've got the 2 weeks where every other sport just requires the 5 days of practice or 1 week. So that's kind of what we're looking at. I know some are starting the 15th or 16th, because most of them are 16th because of President's Day, but they would be able to start, on that first date with the February 27th for that Saturday for volleyball and cross country. But I understand that, and we're hoping maybe they'll make some adjustments to that. But right now it's pretty set in stone. It seems like, Mr. Gottlieb, you've sat in, Sally was in on a superintendent's meeting with you yesterday, I believe. And did that, the read that you got, it's pretty, there's not a lot of leeway right now.
There's no wiggle room right now. None at all.
So I'm trying to see what issues might occur. Is it that we need all students in hybrid by February 22nd, or is it enough that we have started 2 weeks as a district, even though elementary starts first and then secondary?
Well, we'd be in hybrid.
It has to be the school involved, so the middle school would have to be started, high school would have to be started, in the hybrid mode for it to happen. They said that orientation days, or if an elementary started up a week before, even if the teams they're allowed to practice, they would not be able to be considered in the hybrid yet.
So that's why you were throwing around the dates of possibly February 15th with 6th and 9th starting 18th, 19th, and then secondary 22nd. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and and the thing with volleyball, we could probably reschedule a game or two and try to make it work, and maybe with cross country you even have another meet. But when you get into football, you're set 1 game a week. I mean, it's just. It's not safe. It's really not possible to play more than 1 a week, as we all know.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
But they said for us to qualify for postseason competition that you had to play a district schedule. So that's what you're looking at. But I mean, for football, they're looking at possibly 5 games max, and they haven't decided whether they're gonna play a state championship or not. They've run it over a model of just playing 5 games and let everyone play. The coaches are more inclined, and so are the ADs, of wanting to see, to keep it really, the competition level where it needs to be, of possibly playing the three games and then going into breaking it up into 4-team playoffs, wherever your record may hit, and maybe it wouldn't be a state champion, but it would be separated out where they're competing for something. The football coaches just want a chance to play, and the other sports is maybe more possible to do a state competition. But again, there's a lot of variables. If your school gets shut down, you're going to be out for 2 weeks. If you have a positive on your team, you could be shut down for 2 weeks. So I mean, it's going to be tough for teams to.
What coach is really saying to all of everyone listening, is we need everybody to follow the guidelines. We've got to have people wash their hands. We've got to have people wear masks. We've got to have people do the social distance. You may or may not agree with it, but if you want to bring our kids back, you want to bring our sports back, you want to bring activities. Here's another activity no one's talked about, and it's near and dear to my heart as much as football is. I can't have music. I can have orchestra. We're okay with orchestra.
Okay.
I can't have band.
Yep.
I can't have choir. Cannot.
But on the 22nd,
Cannot.
Cannot.
No,
They can't sing and they can't play.
They can't
instruments.
sing, they cannot play instruments.
unless they do it virtually, right?
They can do it virtually.
Yeah.
Which brings up another deal that we could look at, because we don't want to shortchange band, and you have, if we can do things.
Well, I don't think you're part of that. I doggone it. Maybe I did, I don't remember, it's too many things. Some of the Christmas programs that the schools put on, they did it all virtually.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
saw some of those.
At
I
the
did
nursing
too,
home,
yeah.
so they've been doing that virtually.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. It's not the same thing if you don't have everybody there.
No.
I agree.
So you're right, Mr. Edwards, we can do it virtually, and it's okay.
But, as a
And
musician,
as a band person, orchestra person, I never could sing.
right, but as a band kid, you still want to hone your skills and work on your skills, whether it's virtual or person.
And our teachers have done that.
And,
They have
and I
teachers
know
that
of some
have
instructors that are willing to step up to the plate.
done that.
is that course still going to be an elective at the high school level?
Yes.
On-
It's just like our athletic PE classes, they're still in place. Since that is a class, it is run like a class, not like the after-school model.
Same thing
We
with,
got that clarification today.
same thing with choir?
No, you can't sing.
Okay, so no choir.
You can read music, you can do all those things, but you cannot play an instrument. You
But they
cannot
will-
sing.
They will still have the class then and do something different? Or will
Yes.
they be
Reading music, learning how to do that.
redirected?
You can watch videos, you could do a lot of different, they're more creative than I am, the teachers are
right,
when it comes to that.
Okay,
But yes, that's still a class, they still have to meet, they do all those things, they just can't play or
I
sing.
see.
At this
At
point
this
in
Moment,
time.
Yeah,
Last 2 days,
Okay.
6 cases a day in Chavez County, so we're gonna hope for
I know,
Better times.
excellent, yeah,
Yes.
excellent numbers.
more leeway from the governor.
That's the place.
Well, my concern is, before we go on to cafeteria, is, as you heard me start off before, you represent the community, okay? You are highly elected. This decision should have been left up to the board to decide all of those things. Now, I understand you need research, and I need all those things, but in reality, this is the concern that I have for school boards, and this is the concern I have for government, is that you represent the people of the Roswell Independent School District. You should be setting up our guidelines. The guidelines were given to you. You have to do this. Now, would that have been any different? Probably not. But that's where I see that eroding of authority in that issue. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's just my opinion. You may not like it, that's okay.
I have one more question
yes,
for
ma'am.
Mr. Cooper. Okay, Mr. Cooper, I know that in your, Ms. Marcus sent us the YouTube video about her presentation, and it did address cheer and dance. Have we heard anything else that it's on hold for right now until she gets clarification? Is there anything that you can share with us?
About the competition or sidelines, what are you on the Spirit?
Both.
How about wrestling, Coach?
Okay.
Wait, back to cheer and dance
Well,
first.
first, let's go with Spirit. They have moved back the competitions. Normally, they're at the end of March. They've moved them into May. They're hoping that by then, things will clear for they can do it. With the stunning and everything, they should be able to start that with the 22nd if they're cleared. It sounds like that on Spirit. Wrestling's a worrisome one. They're not real sure right there how they're going to handle it. I know that they've already moved it back. They would have to start it, probably it'd have to be pushed into the spring because of the heavy contact and, with wrestling, how can you keep a mask on when you're doing everything else? I don't know. That's a tough one. It really is. But they did say with the Spirit, if there's no crowds, there's no Spirit there either. That's kind of, what Sally had said of the day. But, as we move forward, maybe there's some changes with that and everything. But as far as the competitive sport part, we're moving forward with them just like we are with the other sports. And what we've tried to emphasize and let everyone realize, everyone wants to win. There was no bigger a competitor than me when I coached. But this year's different. We want to win, but we want these kids to get to participate and have a chance. And, if things happen, if they may have to shut down, whatever it is, if they get to play a few games and get to be a part of it, it's been amazing what the workouts have done alone just for mental health. It's been great, and we all understand the importance of athletics and activities. But for these kids, if you took a poll with them, I'm going to promise you it'll be probably right at 100%. And same with our coaches, I believe.
So right now, there's no cheer on the sidelines?
Not on the sidelines, not until we have a crowd. If there's crowd, and I've seen it, and you probably have too, in colleges, of course, the arenas are bigger and all that, where they may set the Spirit squad in the stands and so forth. But right now, we'd have to accommodate lower level teams. If we played a JV varsity game, we'd have to have stuff set up for, that with social distancing and all for the opposing team, as well as our under teams. And, it's just going to be a process. It really is. I mean, sometimes I wake up at night just wondering, how's this going to work? How's that going to work? And, it's going to be trial and error. No doubt about it.
Well, I personally want to thank you so much for keeping us on top of things. I do appreciate you sending out Sally Marcus's weekly updates. It really, I sit down and listen to it, and I have my son listen to it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Well, I just wanted everyone to be informed, and I've tried to, communicate and keep everyone in the loop. And, my phone's always open, and the door, now that we're open to the public, if someone needs to ask questions or whatever, I'm glad to talk to anybody and do what I can to remedy a problem if we can fix it.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank y'all.
The next, I had Julie have two pass outs for you. One was the vote by the staff and the students, so you had kind of a breakout on that. We already went over that. The next one is the cafeteria program. Kim, are you online? Kim, are you there? Hey, Chad?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Do you see Kim online?
I do not see Kim online. I know she was going to work to be online this evening, so I'm not quite sure what's going on.
All right, so board members, what I've had Julie pass out for you is what that would look like as a district-wide, so you can have all the information about serving breakfast and lunch in our schools. During the pandemic, the big issues, we've served about 70,000 meals a week. Now, coming up, if we go back to in-person learning and remote, so just know, board, that just because if you vote to go to hybrid, we still have to provide meals for our remote and virtual kiddos. So what Kim has put together for us is what it would look like at the big level, the district level. Now, I do have one, if we move forward, we will, and I'm doggone it, I didn't bring a copy of it. We do have one, I had a principal of an elementary put it together, what it would look like for an elementary school area. But what Kim gave you was the big breakout. It was what it looked at district. We'd still be providing meals for remote. We'd still be providing meals for virtual while we're having in school at the same time. So I can assure you, the board, that we will provide the meals like we have been to our community for our students. Mr. Dolan, I see a question. None. Okay. Thank you.
Not yet.
Mr. Gottlieb, on the water bottles, do we have enough in stock for all of our students to get through the end of the year?
With the donations and what we have, the answer is yes.
And the way those water bottles are gonna be dispensed is it gonna be a staff member handing those water bottles to each kid, or each?
It goes through that remote process that we said.
The kids
earlier.
pick them up as they walk
The
in.
kids pick them up as they go through.
See,
And if I could chime in real quick, so we do have Kim online, so
Okay,
she
Kim.
can help field some of the questions.
Very good, Kim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Mr. Edwards.
so each kid would pick up their own water bottle, or two water
Two water
bottles?
bottles in the morning.
And then my question was,
The-
are the water bottles gonna be dispersed by an individual staff member that hands each kid the water bottle? And one of my concerns is if you got kids going through to grab water bottles, they touch 3 or 4 water bottles, you got a problem. You're gonna have a problem.
The plan is for the teacher to hand a water bottle, put a water bottle on each student's desk.
In elementary.
Okay.
The secondary they pick up.
So how does that get to the classroom?
What we have planned is we are going to put cases of water in each of the classrooms so the teacher has them right there.
Okay, so they'll be dispersed by one of the deal. Also on the lunches, or the breakfast or lunch, whatever meal it is, are we gonna be using open face trays? Because I was reading, there's different things here where I read where, at one of the schools, they'll be going through through a line at University High School.
Same thing with Goddard.
And I know, I'm just wondering, are the trays aren't gonna be pre-made, and then they'll be sent to the classroom and then dispersed from there?
Elementary through middle school, the trays will be pre-plated and they will be taken to the classrooms. At the high school, the student will come through the line and my staff will then put the food on the tray, and at the end, they will hand the tray to the student.
Okay.
I still see questions on your face, Mr. Edwards.
Oh, I'm good.
Please ask.
I just have some concerns with some of that, but,
Please tell us your concern. I'd rather have it out.
oh, Milburn's gonna,
Okay, so logistics
Yeah.
for me. So delivery to classroom, teacher aides or teacher or kitchen staff to all trades. Well, teacher's aides or EAs are probably gonna be doing daycare. If we don't have them, we're also gonna have to deal with so-and-so called out sick, so that class is there. So the computer aid person who's gonna be cross-certified is gonna have to be there now covering that class till they get someone in. So it's just gonna be a logistical, not nightmare, but magic.
I wish I'd have brought one of the elementary models, so I could have brought that
And
to you.
if they've
Because
looked at it,
I've only done a little bit, because a whole bunch of planning until I have the board vote on this point is very difficult. What we gave you for a big model was the district one. I really meant to bring an elementary one that was already put together. on how they have that planned. So.
And I know that education folks are masters of figuring out a way to get it done. Between the teachers, the principal, the secretary, the computer lab, librarian, the nurse, they do whatever it takes to get the job done. So I'm probably with Mr. Edwards thinking, how's this gonna work? But in reality, in my heart, I know every kid will have a tray of food. They're gonna get back there. Every child will have a bottle of water.
Now, the only person in this group that's older than me that's been through this is Mrs. Kirk, and I don't think she was in the district at this time. But before we had multipurpose rooms, that's what we used to do.
Yeah.
And so,
So,
and,
we had-
Each school had a
and so I know
purpose room.
Mr. Edwards and I would probably have that because we want to read it, what the plan is. As both of us as veterans, we know that sometimes you just got to get down and get dirty and get it done. Hey, you go move this over there, I will answer the phones. I think as all of the phone calls, the emails, the presentation we get, it makes us anxious.
Sure.
But deep in my heart, I know that while you may not have every answer for us, because it is not easy to come up with all this.
Not
you know,
knowing.
and to do the work, and then not to know if it's gonna be used.
So
But I know in my heart, I know that it'll happen.
if the board votes yes on this issue, you, as you've seen everything else, you will see those by building. So I promise you, I have done probably more communication than this board has seen in a long time, except you, Mr. Dolan, you've seen it from the past. But I do communicate and I do send out everything I remember, because there's been a couple times I slipped up and I sent it to you later on and said, I can't remember if I sent this to you or not. Because I am trying to communicate with you and keeping you up on what's going on. So don't worry about that. We will,
I know.
the procedures will be in place, but I understand you're anxious because you got to vote on something that I don't fully yet know myself, because the plans that take place, extra plans to take place, we haven't been able to do everywhere yet. I can tell you if I bring in Pilar, or if I brought in Mr. Luck, or if I brought in Haley, or if I brought in Stacy, some of these already have their plans in place. I can already guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's done.
Some of the elementary.
It's done. I know Leisha has it done at Buena Middle, because I did a personal visit at that, because I got so many kids, 686 or something like that. So I'm anxious too, I promise you. Miss Morales and I have talked about how many nights we didn't sleep, because we're so anxious about all the things that have happened. So I understand your concern, and I understand your worry, and I worry about our staff, and I worry about our students.
But
I
you need to
promise you.
understand that I, for one, because I know you and I know the staff and leadership, I know you'll make it happen, but it still doesn't overcome the anxiety that we have,
No.
that we'll have to make here in a little bit.
Because you're online for a vote. I understand that. Other questions for Kim on cafeteria? Great questions, thank you. Thank you, Kim, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go into the bus, Chad, will you make sure if Chris is online? I can't remember if I told him, it's just one of those things. Here's the
Yes,
bus.
sir. Chris is online.
Excellent, thank you. Chris, I have 3 slides, as you can see here, for bus transportation. I'd like you to go over the board with transportation and procedures. So, are you ready, Chris? Hello, Chris. Unmute, Chris.
I got questions. 40.
Okay, well, I can, there, is that you, Chris?
It is, sorry,
Take it away.
I mute myself.
Okay, so Chris, we're on slide 33. The very first one is buses will seat 2 students per seat, maximum 41. Are you good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So as Mr. Gottlieb mentioned earlier, with the reentry plan, we're going to have at the most 2 students per seat. Seating will be assigned. Our school bus routes and times haven't changed from last year. We will, if we go back to school, our bus drivers will look at the routes, and if we need to make minor tweaks to them, if we go back, we will work on doing that. If we go back to school, we'll have the full fleet of buses running and going to each of the bus routes every day. With the hybrid model, if we go back to it with 50% of the students coming back at a time, we feel optimistic that there will not be overcrowding of the bus, and that we should have enough, we'll have enough space to transport the students to and from school.
So, Chris, I have a question on this page because I don't see it answered in the other pages. If in those first days we happen to have 45 students who need to access that bus, do we have a plan in place for those 4 students on how we'll contact parents?
We do. Our bus contractors have been working with the bus drivers to work on alternate routes. We do also have some bus routes that end a little earlier, and we're looking to keep those bus drivers in their buses and ready to go in case we do have a situation in which you just described. And we will reach out immediately to the school and to the parents and work on correcting or finding a way to accommodate those 4 extra students.
Ms. Morales and Chris, real quick, I will let you know that this part, Chris has been working with the building principals, already reaching out, trying to find out who's going to ride the bus and who's not going to ride the bus. Like some parents say, no, I'm not, we're good with going back to school, but we're not riding the bus. So Chris has already started that process, and we're going to have to do that with every kid that rides the bus to make sure that that situation doesn't happen, but Chris does have a plan for that. So Chris, I'm going to go to number second. The second one was about the second slide, bus drivers and aides will wear face mask coverings at all time, if you'll go from there.
Yes, we have a bus drivers and aides which will be wearing a face covering at all times. Our buses have hand sanitizer dispensers on them. So when students board the bus on the first step, they can just turn to their right and they'll be able to get some hand sanitizer. If a student or someone getting on the bus does not have a face mask, our bus drivers will have a supply of face masks so they can hand them out. The handrails will be right down as frequently as the bus driver can get to them. And in between routes, the bus drivers will wipe and clean the buses. There will be a deep cleaning of the buses 2 days a week following the district with school buildings. It'll happen either late Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the first cleaning, and then Fridays and Saturdays for the second cleanings.
Okay. Going to the third slide, bus stops.
The hope is for there to be some conversation between the families and the kids in teaching etiquette at the bus stops. So as the bus pulls up, we hope that the kids are socially distanced. We hope that they're wearing face masks. And as they line up to get on the bus driver will, after he opens the door, they'll direct the first students onto the bus. At that first step, the student will get some hand sanitizer. When they go up to the third and final step, the bus driver, having assigned seating for the students, will point to where the students need to go, and that process will continue until everyone has boarded the bus. And that takes care of that slide.
And just, I'm going to chime in real quickly because it's a very important point, and it's going to be not impossible, but it's another task to keep those assigned seats and know where each student is at. As we know, when exposures occur, it can shut down an entire site, and it can also shut down an entire bus. So knowing exactly where each student is at is going to be very important, and the bus drivers, the bus contractors have worked very hard to have that process in place and have been working with that in small groups up to this point.
So, board members, one part onto that, in our building principles, I've required them, if the students are riding a bus, they must have that log in file for me, so that when I go in, if we have to shut down a bus because we have had COVID in the bus, we know exactly who rides what bus. So that is part of our contact tracing, and they've done a good job in that, because we've already had to shut down some buses for our pre-K kiddos. So that's part of that process we have to maintain. Chris, we're ready on deboarding at school.
Yeah, so when the bus pulls up to the school, the doors won't open until the bus is greeted by school staff, and then the bus driver will take the closest student and ask them to deboard. They'll ask the students when they get to the bottom step to get another splash of hand sanitizer, and then go to the staff who is waiting for them, and we'll continue that process until everyone is off the bus. And to Ms. Kirk's question earlier, or comment earlier, our bus drivers have always been very anxious to get out at the preset time, but our bus drivers and bus contractors know that, especially now, loading the bus is going to take longer, making sure everyone gets seated is going to take a little bit longer, deboarding is going to take longer. So we'll have, we won't have that air of being in a hurry that we've had in the past.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tweet. That answers my question.
Questions for Chris? We know this won't be perfect. That's why we're staggering the weeks, so as we can work through this model. Then if there's no questions on the bus, that is our last slide. I'm sorry it's taking so long. I am handing out the safety intervention. This is another requirement. Katie went through, bless Katie's soul, she went through this, so and went through the toolkits, and there's several other parts, as you well know. There's probably 9 different booklets, I guess you could call them, that were given to us when the governor made the announcement, that we had to look through, update, and continue to work on as we speak. I do have Katie online. If you have any questions for Katie on nurses, she and her nurses, I just can't tell you what they have been, real gem. So, Katie, can you hear us?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Sound clear. Do you have any questions for Katie at this time?
Katie, I have one question. How much time does our staff have to wait between their first vaccine and the second one?
So the vaccines that we've been offered so far have been Pfizer mostly, and those are 21 days in between. And then if they have the Moderna, it is 28 days.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you the concern I have, board members, is that because you get your first vaccine, you're not immune. It's at 52%, your protection. And your second vaccine, you can always correct me, Katie, 95%, and that's for Pfizer. It's a little different for each one, a little lower. For example, Johnson & Johnson is in the 80s.
And you reach that peak immunity about 2 weeks or so after your second dose of the vaccine. And I did want to let you guys know, just to reassure you, that our nurses are staying up to date constantly. Like even during this meeting, I'm having nurses messaging me with research about wearing masks during athletics. I mean, our nurses really are constantly searching for new information, up-to-date information, and we communicate weekly and really, I mean, daily, but we have weekly meetings and sometimes twice a week. Very big on communication. They have been excellent. They are involved in contact tracing, student staff and care, IEPs, student check-ins, surveillance testing, vaccine communication. We really have our hands in everything, and they've done an excellent job. And again, we have a nurse at almost every building, so we are very blessed in that area.
Any other questions for Katie?
So I take it that some schools don't have the nurses at their building, from what you just indicated, correct?
Yes, so Mountain View shares a nurse with University High School and Early College, and then our Sunset East Grand Plains share a nurse.
If you could find one, good luck. Almost impossible. However, Katie, I have met some wonderful student nurses during this last issues we've been through that are coming up. So maybe we'll get lucky and land a couple more.
Good.
Yes, and we are very all hands on deck. I think pretty much all the principals should have the current list of nurse extensions and even cell phone numbers, really, so that if they need to reach out to somebody, even if they can't reach another nurse and if someone's not in the building, they always have access to a school nurse no matter what. Even if we have a nurse out, we always have a backup plan. I'm available. I've sat in schools many a time, so I mean we have the nurse power here, and I want to make sure all of our schools have access to a school nurse at all times.
Well, kind of give you an idea of that, board, the state legislature is looking at mandating at least one nurse per district. You've got almost one per building.
Per school.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate.
Katie, so are any of our nurses in that high-risk category and requesting to not work on campus with this hybrid model?
No, our nurses have not. I have not received any requests. They are very on board, very active, and ready to go with whatever you guys decide.
Thank you.
I have another question. What are we doing as far as the early college goes with respect to the quarantine rooms and all of that stuff with the university?
So we'll be working with Eastern on that. I know that there wasn't much space available for like a nurse health room, but it's something that we will work and make sure that there is something available where a student can wait until they're picked up or wait to get assessed. We'll make sure that that's in place.
That's real hard, Mr. Edwards, as you well know. University's been a great partner with us, but when it's not your site,
Right.
It's hard to set aside all those requirements that we can do in the building and say, you don't have a choice on this. We're going to have an isolation room.
Right.
I did reach out to a lot of our local pediatricians' offices to make sure they had the most current requirements from the state, so that they were fully aware of our mask mandates, what we can and cannot accept from them for as far as orders. They've been really great to work with us, and also I did let them know. I mean, they were aware, but that we will have to send home a lot more students, and we will have to require a lot more doctor's notes and things like that. So I wanted to make sure they were fully prepared for the extra traffic, and everybody's been very much so on board. Our school health, what am I trying to say, Mr. Golub? The school health.
School-based.
Oh my goodness.
School-based
School-based
health
health center. Sorry, it's been a long
still
day.
have
Yes,
that.
school-based health center. I reached out to them, and they are planning on opening whenever our schools open, and they are getting prepared for that as well. So
And
that's very exciting.
The only one we won't have open because we don't have everything yet is Sierra. As you know, board, Sierra's never had a school-based health center. We're now opening up one at Sierra.
Nice.
So that we have a school-based health center there. La Costa's helped us with that project. We've spent a lot of money remodeling portable, getting it fit for restrooms and sinks and all those things you gotta have. So we're almost there, but not quite. So
Yes, and they have a new provider that we've met with, and she seems great. We've had a lot of really good reach out from the community. I think it's been going really well, and I think everyone is ready to move forward either direction, kind of have an answer so that we know which way to put our efforts and so we can get our students serviced.
So how many school health-based clinics will we have altogether? 4?
we'll have 4.
We have 3.
We have 3, but
But Sierra will make 4.
Sierra will make
Right.
4.
Okay.
We're excited about that.
Nice, yeah.
So
And just so you guys know as well, our state requirements for vision hearing screening is still, that has not been waived. So even if we remain virtual, we are going to have to find a way to screen pre-K, kinder, first, third, and fifth grade students for vision and hearing to meet state requirements.
yes, you had the same reaction I did, Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
The only thing we can say is we made sure that the nurses had the correct equipment this year, so We did.
Yes, thank you so much. Our nurses have also been scheduling screenings for our special education students, with, needs, like if there were concerns about vision or hearing. So they have been scheduling those individually, but for those mass screenings, that is going to be a difficult hurdle for us to overcome. And we've already been working on brainstorming either way, whether we are in person and able to pull students that way for screening, or if we are virtual and need to schedule and make those accommodations.
So, Ms. McLean, will our PE teachers still be required to do heights and weights and measurements?
I'm not quite sure on that. I do not know. That's not really in the nursing department. We've helped with it, but I'm not sure if that'll still be required.
That's with Mrs. Camp's program that we've been working with and all that. So right now they're still virtual, or remote, I should say. So I have not received any
I thought
direction.
that was a state requirement.
Well, not always. It's something that we've done on our own. I have not received any new direction on that point at this point. We know about vision and hearing.
Yeah.
That's, how can you do your dyslexia screening if you don't have those things in place?
Mr. Gottlieb, so right now we can say we are all ready to protect all the students and all the employees that are at higher risks. Could we say that?
We have every intervention in place to the best of our ability. That's what when people ask if we're prepared, every intervention that we have looked up that we are able to put in place, we are doing to the best of our ability with what we have. And I think that our staff we've been working towards this since March last year with trainings and everything. I feel we are as prepared as we would be able to be in this circumstance.
Now, Ms. Sanchez, in addition to that, I've required the principals to have PLCs or PDs on hand washing. There's all kinds of videos on that, go over the hand washing. I've had them watch, there's 4 COVID videos. I told them to pick any of the 2 that we have online with our safety trainings. I also sent them some from the state that they could watch, but that's kind of the requirement that we have our staff go all that, and that they also then train their students on this process. And no matter what has happened before, we have to still do that. So we're trying to do everything that's absolutely possible. Is it going to be 100% correct? I'd lie to you if I said yes. I'll be quite honest.
I can tell you though that I'm going to keep tooting our nurses' horns, but they we just have this COVID quarantine cohort, everything just, on point. We intervene very, very quickly when situations come up. Usually we have stuff in place within an hour. If we have a student who's positive or a staff member, within an hour, we have interventions already going, people sent home, quarantine, a very, very quick process. And they are very good about if we need extra help. Because if we have more students in the building, it's gonna take a lot of manpower to make those phone calls. We're gonna have to make a lot more of those, and everybody steps right in, and it's very quick process. So that's something I'm very proud of with our district and our nurses.
And I will tell you, I have seen, because they have to send me a copy of everything, I have seen as late as 11:30 at night, to be quite honest. And that's on Saturday and Sunday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we have done everything that is possible to our extent with the manpower that we have, the equipment that we have, the chemicals we have, the PPE that we have. Is everything perfect? Is the sun going to come out and shine and everything's going to be perfect there? No. But we are going to do our very best and have tried our very best to give the board something that they can look at and make the proper decision according to what you feel is right.
And we've been spending our time while we've been, partly virtual and partly in person with SPED and everything. We've really been working to use this time to our advantage. So our nurses have worked on making pamphlets for our teachers so that they were able to handle some things in class, since we may not be fully available if we're handling other situations. We've been looking ahead this whole time so that we would be more equipped and better prepared when this time came, whenever it is. Because no matter whether we start hybrid tomorrow or in 6 months, it's going to be a tough adjustment. So we really have been working on this since last spring.
And I in my feeling is you'll probably start fall school time with some supports in place. You won't be full back 100% as a normal. There won't be normalcy, in my opinion, and I've kind of picked this up by listening to the information that is being fed to us. I think you'll start fall with some things that are still going to have to be in place, be it a mask, whatever the situation, but there are going to be some things that are going to have to continue for at least a certain
Another
period of
2
time.
years.
Board members?
And our pediatrician's office has, some of the pediatricians have voiced that they are looking very optimistically that vaccines may be offered to our 12-plus age group, even in May or June, and that's just from the data that they have received. So that's good. And just offered, not required. I want to make sure that's really clear.
It's just like the flu shot. It's offered but not required. Board members, I stand, and the staff stand for any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay. Now, if we have staff members, I know you had asked that question about most of our staff members. I've talked to some of the younger staff that have not been able to get the COVID shot. If they've been put off down the road to get a COVID shot, how would we get them bumped up to get them the COVID shot? Because they've been waiting for the shot. And
Now, Mr. Edwards, I'm fighting the state on this issue.
okay, that's
So what I have been doing is as I explained to everybody before, when we first started rolling out the vaccine, we started with the groups that was right there in person, that were delivering services right away.
right.
So we started with that process. Then came the announcement that, hey, looks like we're gonna come back. We're gonna do that. So, and I only have X amount. I will tell you this much, there were some places that private individuals actually paid and bought directly from Pfizer the vaccination for their staff. It wasn't school people, it was business people. We have not been blessed with that kind of help, but we've been blessed with some other help. Not as much, but it's helped a lot. Hopefully after this Wednesday, we'll be at about 375 that have already received it. I told you we have another 240, 230 that are in that. And yes, I understand they're waiting for it. And I can only move as fast as the state allows the vaccine to be released. My only concern is and I understand the constrictions that they have. But if you're gonna, if they knew they were gonna open up the state for schooling, you would think they would have said, okay, school districts, we're gonna give you your vaccine if you want it.
Yes.
I don't have a choice in this. I have to take what I can get and work with the community to get what we can get, and hope, as in northern New Mexico, some school districts got shut down. They don't get it. They haven't had it.
So, Mr. Gottlieb, just to follow up on Mr. Edwards' thought, would it be appropriate for our meeting next week to have an item on the agenda for us to discuss writing a letter as a board to the state advocating that all our teachers be placed in the priority group?
I know, how do I do this? With the superintendents and NEA, I can't speak for AFT, they have asked for that to be done. And in fact, I know that they had a meeting with the governor this morning. I don't know what her response is on that. And I don't want it to, here's our opinion and the union's opinion. I hope I'm not putting words in Greg's mouth, but I think he's right. We don't want to take it away from the person that's 75 years old. No, not at all. But they need to prioritize our staff. And if we haven't been reached out and had things happen for us, we wouldn't even be where we're at now. There is one part on that I need to bring up to you. If they have had COVID within 90 days, they cannot receive the vaccine. I had a teacher who was pretty angry today with me. They were on the list, but we had to remove them off of the list because they had COVID. And the regulations are, you can't do that. You already have your immune system built up at this point in time. It will be gone after 90 days or weakened, but we've been very fortunate on that. So I know this is a pressing issue, Mr. Edwards, And if I could go out and get it all right now, I would. Because what we've been very fortunate as a district and as a school board is that the number of staff that have wanted the vaccine is greater than a lot of other places.
Right.
So that's a good sign. That's a good sign that they do believe in what's going on, that the vaccine will help. I mean, nothing's ever perfect 100% in this issue of combating the COVID virus, or SARS-2, however you want to call it. So that's the best I can do. I know we're working on it. And what we have also been very fortunate, just like today, we had 15 people that got pulled off of the list because they got called in to get it somewhere else. So then I got to put 15 more in there. So we were at 250. So we're about 235 now because I could add 15 more for tomorrow.
And I think that's one of the concerns in speaking with some staff that have called me is, you know, if I've signed up for it, and I know that's not anyone's fault because we're having to follow the regulations. But I wasn't aware of that. My thought was, hey, I get an update, hey, you call us and you tell us, boom, we've had X amount of teachers that have gotten vaccinated. And I guess maybe I'm missing.
No, that's my fault. Let me explain it to you. If I have, what I had the principals do, first I did all those outline groups that were meeting with kids right away, special ed, pre-K, all those kinds of things, speech. So what I did next was I said, okay, principals, I don't know where we're going with this issue on vaccination. I don't know how many we're going to get. I don't know that. But I want you to reach out to your staff and say, do you want the vaccination or not? If you do, we need your name and your cell number, which they already had, and a yes by their name that they wanted it. So I was prepping them because I am praying that the governor comes back next week and says, hey, Roswell, I got 250 vaccinations for you. Because I want to be ready. I don't want to be waiting, which gives people that impression, oh, I gave you my name. Now, what I did ask the principals to do also, and I hope they did, is I told them to make sure that your staff signed up online. And it must be because staff are getting called in different places to get their vaccination. But, you know, the part that was interesting to me is the number of staff that have wanted it. It was a lot greater than other districts. So we're happy about that. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign.
And nothing being guaranteed as far as numbers, we really had to be strategic with who we were, you know, kind of offering these things first, these opportunities. So we've been meeting frequently. You know, there's a method behind all of these decisions. And so I want the public and you guys to know that too. We are looking and we're discussing all of these things. We're not just picking and choosing, you know, randomly. We're really trying to be careful because we know that this is not guaranteed. We are very thankful for any vaccine opportunities we have, and those doors are opening more and more. So we do ask that staff be patient, but also consider, you know, their needs, but also community needs. So we don't want to take away, like Mr. Golub said, from those fragile communities unnecessarily. Our employees, our school employees definitely need to, I agree, be put, you know, high up on that priority list. But I do also want to refer you guys to some of the research I sent you earlier. Studies are showing from other schools and other places that the risk for a standard school employee is actually about equivalent to those who are working in sales. You know, in grocery stores and such, which is still, any risk is scary. And I 100% understand that. But it is less than, you know, the healthcare system and things like that. So we want to consider, we don't want to take from other areas that we need to consider the whole community. And so I've really tried to encourage employees to look at that, look at that as well.
Who was that?
That was Katie.
Okay.
That was Katie.
She sounded like
And
Mrs. Cole.
what she means, I mean, we're meeting on surveillance testing at least twice a week. I'm meeting on vaccination formally twice a week, and I visit with Mrs. Reese. How many times a day?
Oh, my.
I can't tell you how many times a day that we're meeting with Mrs. Reese. So we have prioritized, we've taken, you know, as Katie said, we were strategic. And I think, for example, if Ms. Morales had a health concern and we knew about it, we put them right up there. So, you know, we did as much as we possibly could. I just hope there's gonna be some change in the wind on that issue. Good question.
We are
though. I
fighting for our
understand.
teachers, and we are looking at the whole picture and trying to be as careful as we can. But we are fighting for our teachers, we're fighting for our students, and we'll continue to do that.
You know, the reason I brought that up is because one affects the other. Doesn't do us any good to put a teacher in there in a classroom that hasn't been vaccinated, and they're at risk of getting sick. Therefore, the teacher is gone, and then you have to replace the teacher. And I was just asking that as a question that came up numerous times yesterday, and so I wanted to put that out there so that there's a better understanding of how the procedure actually works. And
we were fortunate as a district.
Right.
I'll be honest. Ms. Sanchez, you had a question for
I
me.
was just gonna ask you, what approach is the district gonna use in an event that there is a spread of the corona and we have to close the school?
We will go right back into the remote learning.
Yeah.
And the way the governor has rolled out the plan for us in the PED is you do it by building, not district-wide. Now, if there's a mass issue again, then it would just be right back to remote.
Wow.
So we won't be picking up Chromebooks and all that stuff. We do have Royce as of this week. We got those T-Mobile sites out, so we have those things in place. We will encourage on the A day and the B day that they not bring their Chromebook with them. Now, I know there's been some disagreements on this, but they need some interaction, they need face-to-face, they need to visit with the teacher, they need to hear that. They'll still be using their Chromebook for other issues that they got to do homework on and those things, testing and those things. So we're working on that. And our plan is to continue buying more because we know things are breaking. I've already had to deal with that. And so we're looking at buying some more carts and Chromebooks for the buildings because we need a 1-to-1 ratio in the buildings too now that we'll be doing testing. Oh, thank you. I did volunteer the district to test. It's not going to be high-stake testing this year.
State test?
No high-stake testing this year, we believe. That's what the new president has indicated at this point in time. The state's working on the waivers, to looking at all this stuff. There's not been given a formal announcement yet, but I talked to Gwen Warnerman, Dr. Warnerman, and said I'd like to volunteer our district for testing. Why? I really think we need to know where our kids are.
Yeah, baseline.
I'm worried. I'm worried. I know some will be better than others, but we should know as a district where our kids are at before high-stake testing comes back.
Okay, so it is the state test, though?
Yeah.
But it won't be the consequences and the...
No consequences. Your rating is your rating, as it was last 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, Mr. Gottlieb, so first comment to Mr. Edwards is that if the teacher's out sick with COVID, those kids are gone too for 14 days.
Exactly.
Okay? And so I was asked some questions and I promised I'd ask, how's a teacher going to teach both online and in the classroom at the same time?
You're not, unless you have the traveling cameras.
And I told her you couldn't do both.
You can't do
But
both.
I told her I would ask. Probably one of my bigger concerns, the teachers are in there with the students, open to close. How are we gonna get those, kids can go get a bathroom break. Teachers still gonna watch them. Can we get a permanent sub, someone to plan, just to make sure those teachers get a 30-minute, 15-minute mental health break? And my last,
I hate to tell you, the number of subs that we have right now are
I know.
non-existent.
And these are just comments that I'm making. My last one is, for everybody watching, they need to understand that we're gonna make a decision one way or the other, but the parents need to understand it's their choice. If they don't feel comfortable,
That's correct.
they've gotta decide, hey, I'm gonna stay in hybrid, okay? And they're gonna have to decide that final choice. I would like to hope that better communication goes out with the students, that if they need a packet, paper, some kids just do better with paper. you know, and some parents do better teaching from a piece of paper as opposed to a laptop. One of my daughters took her kids to put them to homeschool because she didn't know she could get paper packets for the kids.
Okay.
And I just think that maybe a little more
Flexibility.
talking back to the parents and say, hey, why are you pulling your kid out? Oh, we can fix that. All you have to do is request this. My final thing, and I would ask that Rawls Police Department and the Sheriff's Office, on those first week back in school, have a presence around our schools, because some people have forgot it's a school and they fly by at 45 miles an hour, even though there's kids getting out of a car.
We have a meeting tomorrow with the mayor. I'll make sure I make that request.
And Mr. Dillon, I would like to go back to your second question, because I was able to verify our teachers will still have access to their prep time. They can still participate in things like art, PE, recess, so they're not gonna be stuck in, and for the parents to understand that too, their child's not gonna be in a desk from 8 to 3 p.m. without anything else.
That's why we talked about the recess break and those things in place. We're still gonna have as many opportunities that we can affordably have, Mr. Dolan. Will I ask a teacher to do remote and in-face at the same time? The answer is no.
Thank
You can't do both at the same time. So what's gonna have to happen though is we're gonna have to send home enough work for the kids to work for the days they're not in school. That's just the way it's gonna have to be.
And I think as long, it's quality, I don't think it's quantity. We
Right,
don't
it's
want kids to
quality
burn out.
versus
Right.
quantity.
And
Exactly.
sometimes just the pen and paper, I see with my grandkids, the pen and paper and doing sight words, as opposed to in the beginning where it was a computer and it was a sight word and all the kids said it.
So, for example, and I should have had her on here, was Abby. She has a schedule already planned out so that they still do the art. Now, they can't sing, those kinds of things, but she's got it all planned out already.
Visual arts.
Right.
So we could still do all those things.
Nice.
Thank you.
This is Katie. I just had one last thing to add. The success of hybrid will really be dependent on parents and staff members making that decision if their student or if they as the employee are not feeling well. We really need them to stay home, even if they assume it's allergies. You know, one day of them staying home and getting clarification from a doctor or getting looked at can make the difference, you know, between closing a whole building. And so I do ask the community to really take that into account. Parents, even though you know your children, I do understand that frustration, but your decision to send your kiddo if they're feeling even slightly ill or even feeling well and have a little bit of a fever of 100.4 or higher, you know, that really can close everything. It can make a huge impact and a big ripple across our district. So I do ask everyone to really take that into consideration whenever we return hybrid.
That's why that hybrid, that decision tree had to go out. Because of that very issue, because we had to have that explained to everybody, that to help this thing work, and for next year, that we have a good start on all this issue.
So if the parents decided at the beginning of the year that their students would do remote, but now they changed their mind and they want their kids in hybrid, are they allowed to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know some parents were told no, so.
No,
Okay.
that's not correct.
Okay.
And in fact, I dealt with a parent this morning that had 5 kids. And that was her number one question. She says, we're at homeschool. And she said, Mr. Golub, my husband and I are praying on this issue. We're trying to make some decisions what we want to do. And she said, will you have paper pencil packets? I said, yes, ma'am. Back to your thing, Mr. Dolan. Which I'm sorry that didn't get out, because that was one of the things we did share with principals, that we have computers. She wanted to know if we had extra computers. And I said, yes, we do. She said, can we stay at home and then we see that school's going well? Can we come back? Well, the answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. There's a state law on that. We don't have the choice as public education to pick and choose who we
For the
want.
parents.
If a parent wants to come back to school, bring their children back to school, we have to accept them. There is no yes or no on that issue. The only difficulty we're going to have is the Apex model. That is a tough issue, and I'm going to have to sit down and do much more discussion on that, because once you're in that model, and you're learning virtually, you may not be in the same place where everybody else is at because you weren't remote. You were on Apex. You're in a completely different area, completely different course. It could be different standards, even if it's Algebra 1. We're going to have some discussion on that.
I've had parents ask me about getting their kids back into the school. So I'm assuming if they were at homeschool, they are going to need to re-enroll?
Yes, if they've went to homeschooling, they have to re-enroll. That's a requirement. Now, the nice thing, for parents and our staff is, Royce, I hope this is up and running. I don't know with Power School, is you can enroll online. From phone, from a computer, from a tablet. Is that up and running? Do you know? He's not sure, I can tell.
It was a small nod.
So we'll give you an answer on that, but remember that was one of the things I wanted to have for our parents, is that you can enroll online now. You don't have to show up in the building. You can send information, then we can call you up and ask you to bring these things. So yes, Julie, as state law, we have to accept them. And Ms. Sanchez.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, all right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Other questions?
Mr. Edwards?
okay.
Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Gottlieb, will there be a quarantine after spring break? Because what we've done during Christmas and during Thanksgiving, that's a question that was posed to me today. Are you envisioning a quarantine after spring break?
That came to me today, Mr. Edwards,
Huh?
just by chance. And I said, I don't know. I'm going to have to give that some thought. We do have time.
Okay.
And we'll have to have some discussion because, first of all, we'll have to see what the governor's going to rule on that. But the board's going to have to help me make that decision. I could make that decision, I'll be quite honest. But I'd like to have input from the board.
Okay. I got another question. Since all of this stuff was announced by the governor a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, a lot of people there's quite a few people that are doing Apex. And one of the concerns is what support system is in place, because a lot of kids with Apex, it's self-paced.
Self-paced.
And a lot of our kids are having problems, with the self-pacing and not understanding it. So one of the question is, are we gonna have a support system in place for those students that are currently on Apex?
Well, one of the issues, I'm going to get Jennifer online, and maybe Pilar and Brian if they're there. The difference between remote and Apex is we told them, Apex is self-paced.
Right.
And you're basically by yourself because you are working with computer software and they're doing all the teaching. Teachers check in on you to see if you're attending, look at the progress. They have to move you to the next lesson. They have to do those things. But if you're doing that, then you're back to remote.
Right.
And that's not the idea of Apex. And we tried to explain that to parents. So Jennifer, are you online?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we've had lots of discussion around that because you're right, Mr. Gottlieb, it is self-paced, and the teachers have to really structure in what are those teacher assignments they're going to allow. What are they going to stick with just the computer-based assignments? And so there's some variation that can happen. And so what we've done is met with the high school principals and the mid-school principals, a little more so with the high school. We've looked at those DNF reports from first semester now that we finally have Power School up and going and we can run those. And so the high school principals have structured in some support systems with their teachers. Looks a little bit different at each of our high schools based on the staff that they have in place. But yes, they are offering some additional opportunities for students to connect with content teachers in tutoring and to have some follow-up support. But again, it was a computer-based program that the students did opt into.
Okay. Next question. For a parent that has a kid that is currently because everybody has been remotely.
Yes.
And they're currently doing Apex as one remote, and then they're also doing Canvas as one remote. Now, if a parent decides, because it's still, they're not in school, is my point. If a parent has chosen to go hybrid and they decide to go remote, will they still be allowed to use Canvas?
Yes, they will. And so that was one of the things that we talked about early on, was that if a student opted into Apex, that they would stick with that and see it out, because it's very difficult to move back and forth, especially when you're talking about high school students who are acquiring credits. But right now we have a situation where we do have secondary students who are in Canvas, connected to their regular classroom teacher, not on the computer-based program. They're with Canvas, and they don't want to return to school. We know that there's a percentage there. I believe Mr. Gottlieb said earlier it's about an 8% average. And so we want them to stay connected to their teachers through Canvas. If they didn't opt for that computer-based program, we really want them to stick with Canvas, and that's what we'll be encouraging.
So
But
will they be required to go to the school? Because there's some confusion out there as far as if they don't go to the school, they will lose their Canvas.
Let me clarify that.
Okay,
The board hasn't made a vote.
right.
So I can't get any message out to the community yet until the board votes. So this is the problem with rumors.
Well, it was just a concern that the parent had brought to me, and I told them I would bring that up
Okay.
tonight.
So the issues, if they're staying remote, that means they're going to be exactly the same.
So
But what if those teachers are teaching hybrid now, A group and B group?
We-
That might be.
We're gonna, by looking at your numbers that you saw of students, you're gonna have X amount of staff that are gonna be used for the A and B.
Okay.
But you're gonna have other staff that are gonna be doing the remote. I mean, okay, let's see, class schedules. And I wish I had Pilar or Brian online. But on the average, you have about 25 kiddos in a class, right? A teacher has, a kiddo has 8 sections or 8 classes. So you start multiplying that now by Roswell High, 1,463 kids. That's how many sections you're going to have for math, English, science, social studies, electives, CTE, all those. It's a monster. It is a monster. So that's why we're going to have some times where they're A, B, but they may have an open time for a remote. You see what I'm saying? Okay. But I can't look at any of this yet until I know how the board is going to vote on this issue.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get everybody to understand because you have to be there to understand the full complexity of elementary, middle, and high school.
No, that makes sense. So a math teacher may have 3 classes they teach hybrid and 1 period they teach remote, possibly.
It possibly could.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense. I understand that. So
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
Oh, it's been crystal clear.
For now, for now.
I just thought, I got one more question. On the classroom size, I know when we did our tours, when we got to tour Del Norte, we had one projection for classroom size. Are those classroom size, what are you envisioning as far as a classroom size for, let's say, a classroom that has 32 students right now?
No, I'm not going to have 32 students.
Right, but they have 32 right now. What's the number going to look like if they go?
It would be 15.
15, okay.
If
the space is there.
If you have 6-foot space.
Okay.
This is a double whammy. So it's half of the building, half of the class size at 6 feet. And I promise you, they've worked real hard on this because they've had to remove furniture from the classrooms, and we have it in hallways and stuck everywhere. Good question. Because we had that view. So I hope eventually, if we go hybrid, that you do visit, but you're going to have to make sure all the safety stuff in place as you go through. Other questions?
So, yes, I have one. So the state requirement now, instead of 100% surveillance testing per week, we're down to 25%?
We're right now at 10 to 12%. If we go hybrid, we have to go to 100% a month or 25% a week.
Oh, okay, so that's a 25% a week or 100% in a month, okay. Thank you.
And I have one last question, Mr. Gottlieb, and thank you to you and your staff. I started with 20 questions and you guys have answered most of them. My last one is, teachers are going to possibly have to prepare to shift, and it's a different kind of teaching. They have to use different numbers of materials to make sure kiddos are safe. Will school budgets support the purchase of new items that teachers are gonna need? And I'm thinking like the bins with the lids or extra tape, things like that that I would hate for our teachers to have to buy out of pocket. Are the buildings gonna support some of those items, or are we making a list on those items on what's needed?
See, those are the things I don't know yet because I don't know what we're doing.
But if we do it, it's an option that our teachers are going to be supported, and the expectation will be that they're doing it out of pocket. It's something with the phone line, sir.
Okay.
People are hanging up and joining.
Ms. Morales, as in everything in life, everything within reason.
Right.
Madam
Within
President,
reason.
would you entertain a motion at this time?
Any other questions? Okay, so Mr. Dolan, I have a little bit of explanation on how we're gonna do the motions, and then I will take the motions. Before voting on any particular option for student instruction, and to be fair to the range of possible instructional options, I'm gonna accept any motions from board members regarding whether there should be any changes made to the district's current policies related to the learning plan. After I take all motions, we can discuss the motions one at a time. I will then entertain a vote for each motion until we have at least 3 votes for any one option. You each have a handout on the 3 examples of possible motions that can be made. You may use one of these or create your own motion. We will discuss motions made outside the 3 examples given to ensure that they are in alignment with state orders prior to taking an official vote. Does this process make sense?
It does, but you only have one motion at a time.
Correct.
So we can we'll have to modify that, but if we vote on a motion to return to hybrid,
I'm going to, so what I'm gonna do is take a motion and a second for all motions, and then
but you
we'll
can't
vote.
have 3 motions.
We did the similar process, and we have Tony on the line if we need him, but this is a similar process to selecting the new board member. We took motions for multiple candidates, and then we
Yes.
voted on the
You can,
different
yeah.
candidates. So that's gonna be the same thing that we're gonna do for this.
Okay.
And we do have Tony online if you want further clarification, but I did send him these examples prior to, and he helped with the language for the explanation.
So the ones you gave us are the ones that he,
Approved as far as language, yes.
okay, so I'll make the first motion. I move the district move to a hybrid model, which allows up to 50% of the students on site for all grade levels, permitting students to choose physically to attend classes or continue in remote learning, with the date for any such return to be determined by the administration based on the staff readiness, safety, and health issues.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan, for that motion related to hybrid learning. Can I have a second for that motion?
So moved.
Mona and James both.
Okay. Do we have any other motions that we would like to have entertained at this time?
No, but I would like to make a comment before we do take a vote. I notice right now watching, we have almost 400 people on board watching this board meeting. That's how important this decision is. And I want to thank all of those who have reached out, either text, email, phone call, met me on the street and voiced their concerns. I hear you. I know what you're saying. This is such an important decision. So thank you all so very much for tuning in and actually voicing your opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Whitcamp, I will be going with motion number 1. So I have a motion to move that the district move to a hybrid model, which allows for up to 50% of students on site for all grade levels, permitting students to choose to physically attend at school sites or continue remote learning online, with the date for any such return to be determined by the administration based on staff readiness and safety health issues. Roll call, please.
Hope Morales,
Yes.
Hilda Sanchez,
Yes.
Mona Kirk,
Yes.
James Edwards,
Yes.
Milburn Dolan,
Yes.
The ayes have it, and the motion carried. And we will move to our next item on the agenda, discussion and vote regarding possible restart of some student extracurricular activities and sports, review of associated health and safety requirements.
I think we need to discuss.
Any discussion?
Any discussion more than what we've already had?
No, no. I'd like to make a motion.
A second?
We have a motion made by Ms. Kirk and a second made by Ms. Sanchez. The motion is a vote. Is your vote, Ms. Kirk, I'm sorry, is your motion to support the restart of student? Okay, so the motion is to restart some student extracurricular activities and sports. Okay, roll call, please.
Hope Morales,
Yes.
Hilda Sanchez,
Yes.
Mona Kirk,
Yes.
James Edwards,
Yes.
Milburn Dolan,
Yes.
Okay, the ayes have it and the motion carried. And I do want to thank everybody for joining us on this meeting. I want to echo what Ms. Kirk said about everybody reaching out to us. I know some of the concerns that I heard, I hope were addressed tonight by the information presented, so that our families know you will always have that option if you don't feel comfortable sending your students to school. For our educators, I think we have a lot of great things in process. I know some of the concerns you have were addressed, and I feel confident, Mr. Gottlieb, that you and your staff will continue to work to address the other concerns. I do want to call on our families and staff. As a board, we did our best to support this opportunity for your students to return to school. We now need your help to follow the guidelines to make sure that our schools don't close. So that is our big ask of you tonight. Okay, this is the end of our agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam President,
Yes.
Madam President, members of the board, may I ask for a personal point of privilege?
Yes, Mr. Greg Maxey?
Yes.
Board members, we know these decisions are tough and they're being made across the whole state of New Mexico tonight. But I want to assure this board that we would not be able to believe that we can accomplish this task without the leadership of your superintendent, as he has helped move these matters forward, not only for the board, but for the staff and working with the unions. This community owes a debt of gratitude to Superintendent Gottlieb. He has worked long evenings. We have had long conversations, and we look forward to working to make this successful for students as well as staff in Roswell. This board would be honored to have a leader like him, and I don't believe we would be near successful tonight in these decisions and as we're moving forward without his leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxey and
Thank
Ari,
you,
for
Mr.
your
Maxey.
partnership.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Maxey.
Okay, this is the end of the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
May I have a
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Mr. Edwards and a second made by Ms. Sanchez. May I have a roll call, please?
Hope Morales,
Yes.
Hilda Sanchez,
Yes.
Mona Kirk,
Yes.
James Edwards,
Yes.
Milburn Dolan,
Yes, ma'am.
And time of adjournment is at 8:05. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.